Thank you. It's 6:30. I hereby call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Our first order of business tonight, it's my favorite time of the year. We have presentation of the July 4th Parade Float winners. I'm sure everyone would agree that this year was Peachtree City's absolute best. Everything from the floats, the parade, the Georgia Mass Band, the afternoon events, live music, Luke Morgan, the Peachtree City Wind Ensemble, the drones, the fireworks, it was amazing. And we have staff in our recreation department, in our public safety departments, and throughout the city who spent months planning and preparing for these wonderful activities. Would you join me in thanking them?
Yeah.
And now, as I call the winners, would you please come up, and we'd like to take a couple of photos too. First of all, the most patriotic winner, Better Way Ministries. This is the first time you've been a recipient, right? Not the first time? Here, you hold this. That's yours. After all your hard work, that's the least we can do. Thanks again. Congratulations. The winner for most creative goes to Air Heat America. And clap really loud if they cooled you down when they came by. Very clever. I heard about it all day long. Congratulations again. The Spirit of Peachtree City Award went to our own Peachtree City Dog Park.
For the doggies.
The doggies. Our Mayor's Trophy winner went to Peachtree City Hockey.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're the ones who gave me a ride in the morning. I got dropped off a little early and I had about a mile and a half more to go than I thought. Good morning, how are you? I mean, good evening. Gather round.
Small guys in front.
And finally, the Grand Marshals Trophy winner goes to Dirty South Strength and Conditioning.
Woo.
Congratulations. Well done.
Good.
And again, thanks to all. It was our best ever. Congratulations. Next on the agenda is public comment. I know that we have several people here tonight who would like to comment on our upcoming discussion item. In this evening's agenda, discussion item A is a solid waste management collection and related services item. And we will be enjoying a presentation. So I would like to ask if you want public comment tonight, first of all, thank you. I'm glad you're here and we want to hear what you have to say. But if your public comment topic is on this particular topic, then I'm going to ask that you wait so that we can all see this presentation together and get the information together, and then we'll take your public comment to follow. Fair enough?
Do we need a motion on that, Madam Mayor?
No,
No? Mayor prerogative on this one?
that's it.
Okay,
Mayor
good.
presides. Let's see, public comment. Do we have others?
Yes, we do have two speakers, Madam Mayor. The first speaker is Paul Schultz.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Paul Schultz. I live in McIntosh Corner subdivision. You probably know me as chair of the Transportation Advisory Group. I'm here speaking as my own person tonight, though. I would like to say thank you very much to our police and code enforcement for working, and I can tell there's been report outs from the PD about enforcement activities on the cart paths to get some of the things off the paths that are not legal to be there, specifically some of the e-motos, the performance electric motorcycles that really should be on streets and registered with licensed drivers. So I really appreciate that. I would like to ask for enforcement also of the 50-inch cart width that's now in the standard. So standard golf cart is 48 inches wide. That's a typical club car, Easy Go, something like that. There are carts that have been modified to have a wider stance, higher performance, possibly off-road type tires. Our cart paths, the standard for construction is 120 inches. With the 50-inch standard we have on cart width right now, that gives two carts that pass each other 20 inches of space. That's about this much. If everybody takes 5 inches on one side, then that's 10 inches between two carts approaching each other at 40 miles an hour, 20 one way and 20 the other. That's a very difficult, at that speed, space to navigate. And so and curves will tend to eat that up because most drivers don't hug the curves. And I'm also thinking, you know, at a 30, 40-year-old driver is probably okay, but with young, inexperienced drivers and elderly drivers who maybe have less reaction time, that's a big deal. And in some cases, our paths are not even 10 feet wide. So that space cushion of 20 inches on a 9-foot section due to right-of-way issues or trees hugging the edge of the path. So anyway, in short, please work on and encourage enforcement too of the maximum width per the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
The final speaker is James Clifton.
James Clifton, Fielding Ridge Precinct. Actually, I'm going to speak on a couple topics. One of them is trash. I'll make it brief. Tonight, there are many important issues on the agenda, including monopolizing trash service and annexing land for a possible data center. Regarding trash service, Peachtree City already limits citizen choice on trash providers to 3 companies. An ordinance that would reduce the option to one provider and require every household to pay for this service regardless of need represents an unnecessary expansion of government authority. In 2019, this council wisely backed away from a single provider, no choice mandatory system after hearing strong public pushback. We should not revive that idea now. Forcing residents into a mandatory service eliminates competition, risks higher costs, and treats citizens as subjects rather than free individuals who can manage their own property and waste responsibly. Government has no compelling interest in mandating participation and limiting it to a single provider when private options and personal responsibility suffice. Next, I want to talk about the annexation saga. This whole process started with secret meetings and a faraway retreat. The public was entirely removed from the process. We later found out through uncovered recordings that the Fayette County Development Authority presented information about data centers and encouraged Peachtree City to annex the property abutting Falcon Field Airport in Coweta County. The mayor asked on 2 separate occasions during the meeting how City Council could move the conversation about annexing the land in Coweta County forward. City Council decided unwisely that secret 2x2 meetings with the data center developer, the seller of the land, and the Fayette County Development Authority would be the best option. 2 days after the secret meetings, City Council agreed to the annexation study that is going to be presented tonight. The head of the Fayette County Development Authority, who made the presentation and participated in those secret meetings, has since resigned. The lack of transparency in this process has been appalling. If it weren't for the diligent pursuit of information by concerned citizens, the people of Peachtree City would likely be blindsided tonight by an annexation plan that included property in Coweta County earmarked for a data center. My sincerest hope is that over the last 5 months, you have heard the voice of the citizens and that there are no plans to annex property that would include a data center. Recently, City Council planned another retreat for August of this year. I was thankful to find out today that the retreat has been canceled. Since Memorial Day, the Daughters of the American Revolution have twice read the entirety of the Declaration of Independence before City Council. Yet, parts of it seem to have fallen on deaf ears. In the Declaration, Thomas Jefferson wrote the following among the grievances. He, the King of England, has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them, the people, into compliance with his measures. Peachtree City Council should heed this warning and ensure that all future meetings remain local and accessible to the public. Jefferson summed up the Declaration of Independence in one very essential sentence. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Whether it is a mandatory trash service, annexing property for data centers, or council retreats in faraway places, we do not consent.
Thank you. The next item is agenda changes. Council? No. Minutes. June 18th, 2026, City Council meeting minutes. June 18th, 2026, executive session minutes. June 22nd, 2026, special called work session. Can I get a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes at A, B, and C.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda item A, ordinance 1261, reorganization and dissolution of the Engineering Services Division. Can I get a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve consent item agenda A, ordinance 1261, reorganization and dissolution of the Engineering Services Division.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Discussion item A, RFP exclusive solid waste management collection and related services. Jonathan Miller. And before you start, I will mention that this came up in our council retreat in January. The topic came up. And so we're discussing it tonight because council felt that this should be a priority for discussion and exploration. So with that.
Good evening. Okay, is it working? Good evening, Mayor and Council.
No, it's not
Can't
working.
hear you.
It's not working.
If you just give it 1 second.
Okay.
Is it on?
Give it a second.
Needs to be a little louder.
Testing.
Maybe there.
Sounds better.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's discussion item is going over the residential solid waste collection proposal. So this item covers 5 topics that we'll kind of go over. The request for proposal overview, so what the requirements that the city put out for the RFP, the evaluation criteria, proposal evaluation summary that we have, cost comparison, and then we'll have a portion for questions or council discussion. Okay. All right. So an overview of the RFP. So the primary purpose of this was to select a single qualified contractor to provide exclusive residential solid waste to approximately 13,700 households in Peachtree City. So what we outlined in the RFP was an initial contract term of 1 year with annual renewals up to 5 years based on satisfactory performance. Primary goals are reliability, high-quality customer service, consistent citywide service, and predictable pricing and environmental responsibility. Some of the key performance requirements that we outlined in the RFP were 99% route completion, so all routes need to be 99% of all the scheduled collections on the service day. Routes not completed within 24 hours would be considered a service failure. Missed pickups cannot exceed 1% of the scheduled stops per month, and verified missed pickups would have to be corrected within 1 business day. Customer service standards that we put in the RFP were 90% of all calls had to be answered within 30 seconds. Their call abandonment rate needs not to exceed 5%. Complaints have to be acknowledged within 1 day, and complaints resolved within 2 business days. Some additional ones, especially when we get into technology and reporting that we put in there, is we wanted GPS-equipped fleet, onboard cameras, route verification, and monthly reports from the waste haulers. So we want to know their route completion, their missed pickups, any customer complaints they've received, response times. We want to know their collection tonnage of trash, recycling, and yard debris, if that's included, bulk collections, cart deliveries, replacements, property damage claims, safety incidents, and non-payments. So the recycling requirements that we put out were fairly extensive. We worked with Keep Peachtree City Beautiful to kind of decide how this needed to look in the RFP. Weekly curbside recycling collection had to be for all residential units. Recycling services had to be included in the base rate. It was not an optional add-on that would cost more. Available to every resident, and we have participation by individual households voluntary, and the reason that's kind of in there is some municipalities or trash services will put stipulations that they won't pick up the trash if the recycle can's not out. So we're providing it to every resident, but whether or not they put it out is not going to stop their trash from being picked up as well. And then 1 new contractor provided recycling cart for each resident. It has to be a distinct color different from the trash cart. Separate recycling collection vehicles, so no commingling of the recyclables. They can't throw it in the same vehicle that they're picking the trash up with. Implementation of a recycling contamination monitoring and cart tagging program, so that we can see if they're collecting a lot of contaminated items, and then track and report recycling contamination rates and work almost like a educational piece with the city to reduce those rates. And then the monthly reports for the recycling tonnage, participation rates, contamination rates, GPS service verification data to back all that up and identify their processing facility, so their materials recovery facility, in markets and processing methods to their recycling. Another thing that we included in the RFP were liquidated damages, and this was just to kind of ensure that we get consistent service and encourage the waste hauler to ensure they're going to do what they said they were going to do. So we have violations such as missed pickup, uncorrected missed pickups, route not completed, repeat missed pickup, and the applicable liquidated damages that we put in there. And this is just a continuation because we couldn't get it all on one sheet, but spill or leak not cleaned, failure to respond to a complaint, late, incomplete monthly reportings, or unresolved property claims are all what we put in as liquidated damages that the city could enforce against the waste hauler. So now we get to the options that we put in the RFP. So we actually asked them to look at 3 different options for the city. The first would just be base service, very similar to what everybody has now, which is weekly curbside trash collection and recycling. But I know some of the haulers I think do bi-weekly recycling, but we wanted it weekly in this RFP. And then option 2 has everything that option 1 has with the trash and recycling, but we also wanted yard debris collection of limbs, and we did put in there that we wanted the option of a yard debris container for each person as well. And then option 3 is what we called full service, which adds the collection of bulk items. So that would be things such as mattresses or just large bulky items that, we do the spring cleanup once a year, but these items would actually be picked up with the waste hauler as well. So now we get to the evaluation criteria. So this is kind of how the RFP is based. It's not solely based on cost. Cost carries a weight of 30%, but all of the evaluators on the committee that did the evaluations for the RFP were looking at their operation approach, transition plan, the experience, qualifications and references, customer service and reporting, their fleet staffing and continuity of service, recycling performance, and any contract exceptions they may have to the RFP. So cost is really only 30%. We're looking at can they service us and how well can they do that. So now we're going to go into the evaluation summaries. So we had 6 responses. Amwaste, GFL, Ryland, Red Oak, Waste Pro, and Republic all responded to this RFP. So for option 1, you have the evaluations, and I also want to state, like, all of the evaluators on the committee, nobody knew the prices. So we did this everybody was evaluating their operational approach, experience, qualifications, all of the other items. Cost didn't come into play. Actually, our purchasing manager put that in at the end after we had everybody's evaluation. So we were just basically rating them on how well they presented in the RFP that they would provide the service to the city. And as you can see in option 1, Amwaste is at the top. However, Amwaste, I would say Amwaste, GFL, and Republic, based on all 5 reviewers, were very, very close in their operation approach, experience, qualifications, customer service, fleet staffing, continuity, recycling performance, and contract exceptions. They were really, really tight on that end of it. Option 2, again, Amwaste is at the top, and again, those 3 are very, very high. I will say Red Oak, I believe, and maybe Ryland were the 2 lowest cost, and you can see they have the highest rating in the cost bracket as far as the 1 through 5 scale. So this is option 2. Amwaste again edging ahead. The next one is option 3 for the full service. Very similar, with cost being 30%, and the way they everybody put their price in, the scores haven't really changed much from one option to the other. The top 3 still seem to be the highest. And then the next slide, cost comparison. So as we get into the cost comparison, you can go ahead. So here are the top three when we finally got cost. And I know it's a lot of information, so if there's any questions, I can stop and pause right here and answer. But the top part shows you option-based, and they provided that monthly, but we also put it in there as quarterly because that's how most people pay their trash service. For just the base recycling and trash service on a weekly basis for AmWaste was $63.45. Republic was $89.40, and then GFL was $82.50. For option 2, AmWaste was AmWaste was $75, Republic was $103.92, and then GFL was $99. And then option 3, which includes the yard debris and the bulk, AmWaste was $85.56, Republic was $111.45, and then GFL was $115.50. And there were some additional service pricing that we asked. So a couple of things to note with each one. Backdoor service. So Republic and GFL both have charges for backdoor service for ADA or medical need. AmWaste said that they would do ADA or medical need backdoor service at no cost. Christmas tree collection was also at no cost with both Republic and AmWaste. GFL was $25, and then they have the cost for an additional cart if you needed an additional cart replacement. AmWaste, again, that was included at no cost. And then we asked for a bulk pickup option if we added it to option 1 or 2, like what it would cost if somebody called to do a bulk pickup if we went with option 1. So you can see AmWaste is $175 for that bulk pickup, where Republic is $75 and GFL is also $75. Another thing, because we have no intention of not doing the annual spring cleanup like we do every year, is we asked, what would you charge to facilitate that? That's usually how we do that. We get dumpsters from one of the waste haulers and our guys work it. AmWaste said they would do it at no cost. And then Republic was $38.50, and then GFL, we didn't really specify how to answer, but theirs is $100 a haul, $55 a ton. So what that means is they're going to charge $100 to dump the dumpster, and then the tonnage is priced out at $55 a ton after it's filled up. A couple of additional notes. AmWaste actually offers a premium backdoor service if it's not ADA or medical for $75 if somebody chose to use it.
Per quarter?
Per month.
Per month.
So I mean, it's expensive, obviously, for the premium, but the medical need or ADA is totally free. And also, neither one of the other ones actually provide like a premium. You have to have the ADA or medical need for the backdoor service. So a couple other things we discussed. So they will also provide bulk pickup bi-weekly without calling. Our RFP stated that it would be an on-call type system if you went with option 3, like you would actually call them and set up a time for them to come pick it up. We actually discussed, asked the question with all 3 if that was an issue or if that changed anything, if we actually made it a route as opposed to having to call in. And all of them were more than willing to do that, to actually have it be every 2 weeks and they'll come through and pick it up. And then AmWaste, Al with Keep Peachtree City Beautiful, he liked the fact that they own and operate the material recovery facility, so the MRF. And their reporting, what they provided in the RFP as far as reporting was very extensive, so we'd have a very extensive reporting on the recycling side of it. And then contract exceptions, most of them were none. Republic had a couple, but it wasn't, they wanted 90% of the calls answered in 90 seconds as opposed to 30 seconds and less than an 8% abandonment rate. So it wasn't a major exception. So that kind of sums up the cost. I think the next slide. So this was actually done. Keep Peachtree City Beautiful did this. It doesn't have a ton of responses. There's only 191, but for 2 weeks at the recycle center and compost, I think Al and Tyson, they asked people who they had and how much they paid. So we kind of put that data together, and this is something that could be expanded to like a larger survey or something citywide. But overall, Pollard, Republic, GFL, the current providers, you can see the average monthly cost based on those responses. We got 55 from Pollard, 101 from Republic, and 35 responses from GFL. But a couple of the numbers that we were kind of looking at is, the base rate was $63 with Amway. So we wanted to know, well, what percentage paid more than $64? And you can see with Pollard, it was 87% paid more, 95% paid more with Republic, 97% paid more with GFL. And then we also, it's not a true apples to apples comparison, because obviously the full service at $85 includes more services, but just so y'all had it, how many people currently pay more than $86, which would be over the full service. So to kind of gauge like who would see an increase in their bill. So there's only 12% of Pollard customers that pay over $86. So there's based on our survey and that limited data, a large portion of them would pay more, but you're also adding services. So like I said,
Jonathan, I see average monthly costs on here. That should be average quarterly costs, correct?
yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, just clarifying.
Yes, you're correct. Thanks for. And then the overall results are, 93% of all of the people surveyed pay more than $64. So you kind of have that number, and 56% of all the people surveyed pay more than 86. So just kind of an example of what we could expand. So 191, if there's 13,700 households, that's not a very big percentage of the overall city, but we could potentially, council could decide to expand this survey broader if they chose. And I believe that is the last slide that we have, so it's really.
Could you go back? I'll do a couple council questions, but I do want to hear from citizens imminently. Can you please go back one more? So I'll go first. I pay $87 per quarter currently to Republic. And so if in a hypothetical Amwaste situation, if we went to option 3 full service, my bill goes from 87 to 85.56, but what is added is at no additional charge, my every other week recycling would go to every week recycling.
Correct.
My trash gets picked up weekly.
Yes.
My yard debris gets picked up at no extra charge
Every other week, bi-weekly.
every other week. And bulk pickup looks like what? I make a phone call and
Actually, I think the best way to do it, because they're open to it, is you would have your yard waste and your bulk picked up at the same time. So if you have bulk, because the one issue that I would feel concerned with the on-call is a missed pickup, right? So if they're running the route, they're gonna go down that street. And if you have a bulk item on the curb, it's going to get picked up. So I would tie them bi-weekly, both of them together, where you get your yard waste and your bulk items picked up at the same time.
okay, thank you. And then currently, I guess it's been 27 years since I chose Republic, but we choose our hauler from a short list that the city has approved. Is that true?
Yes, through
Sure.
a franchise agreement.
3.
Yeah.
We have 3 options. Currently, we all have free choice of 3. Okay. And then I have one last thing, and I want to hear from the other council members, and then we'll have public comment. Part of the impetus for this discussion is we've discovered I think when we were looking at the amount of dollars that our haulers pay to keep Peachtree City beautiful, we know how many households we have. We know how many dollars go to keep Peachtree City beautiful every month, and we know the difference. And the difference is how many households in Peachtree City do not contract with anyone for trash removal.
Jonathan, do you have a number for that?
Yes, Al usually keeps track of it via the stormwater bill, but I believe it's approximately 1,400, somewhere in that
So you're
neighborhood.
talking 10% of the population doesn't use trash recovery.
And
or
so
pickup.
we see that, though. I mean, nobody produces zero trash. We see that trash.
Well, Al spoke on this extensively. He collects it from the cart path all of the time. We have code enforcements. Even this last week, a code enforcement was sent to somebody's residence because their trash would, they had, crab legs for the 4th and a lot of stuff. And Tyson and them went through each bag with gloves to find a piece of mail. And code enforcement went to the house and issued a citation, and they stated they didn't have trash.
Thank you. I'm going to stop for now. Any council, I'd like to hear from you and then open it up for public comment. Is there anything you want to say at this time? We'll still discuss later.
Yeah, I have, but you want me to go? Are you good?
No.
I'm glad that you came up with a number of about 1,400 people, 1,400 households. That's 1 out of every 10 neighbors doesn't use trash collection. And they end up going, as poor Al over here in the orange shirt knows, it goes onto the cart path dumpsters. And guess what? That's your tax dollars that are picking up that. You're paying for the people who don't pay. But you don't know you're paying because that comes on the bills. They have $1 a month per, I think it's $1 a month, Mayor? $1 per month. So you're actually paying for those people who don't take a trash hauler. So I'm really glad that we're going to be including everybody, no exceptions. Did I read that right, Jonathan?
Right, and whichever option would need to be everybody, like whatever, if council moves forward, yes, whatever option you pick in the RFP, it's stated it's everyone, so.
Good. So there's no opting out. And yes, it is, it's basically an honest bid, just like anything else that we do. We had RFPs out there. We've done exactly the kind of work I would expect of our staff. They figured out a best way to evaluate these people. And obviously, I think I've got a few brains left in my head. It looks like Amwaste is heading in the right direction, is what I see on the chart here. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the others, but in a free society, in a free bid, where you all had a chance to bid to the same specifications, one is going to come out on top.
Yes.
I think that's kind of the American way, isn't it? There's first, second, and third and everything. Or are we going to be doing one of those, everybody gets a trophy, so therefore we can choose any of these? Well, to me, that really defeats what you're trying to do here, is have one hauler take everything, and you've got one hauler that has to be responsible to everyone in the city. And in my mind, that's exactly what we need in our city. That's all I got for right now.
All right.
I have some questions. Michael, do you want to go?
Sure. Thank you, Jonathan, and for all the work putting out these RFPs and bids. And pardon us, 'cause it's the first time we're seeing this. We're kind of breaking all this down. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So on the thank you for clarifying the performance guarantees and financial penalties. That was a question I had. And also the fact, so you said on Amwaste, they have their own recycling facility?
Right, they own and operate it.
Okay, great. And that's different than any of the vendors we have currently.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that material ends up at Amway's facility because there's not a
I
whole
see.
lot through here. But, having their own facility and getting the reports that we're requiring, that is a plus to, they own the facility we need to get the reports from, right?
Yeah. Obviously, it's no secret. I've been advocating for yard debris pickup, and when I ran last year's, probably what inspired me to run. I didn't really get into the whole burn ban repeal debate. What frustrated me was that there was no one talking about alternative options for yard waste. And, you know, it was a big vote for for the previous council, but there were no alternative options for citizens.
Right.
And what we're seeing is more collection on the green belts. And then also when it comes to more collection on the green belts, also the trash of the folks who aren't contracted with anyone to have a trash service. And I see that on the paths all the time when I take my kids out on the golf cart. Especially in Peachtree, that prides itself on trying to keep our green belt so beautiful and clean. So on the yard debris, and I apologize if this gets in the weeds a little bit, because I really want to break this down for our residents to understand what that looks like. So it's every 2 weeks, and you know, in the previous city I lived in, we would have to bag the leaves and the grass clippings. Here I see that there's a 96-gallon cart. I'm looking at Amway's, obviously it's the cheapest one. For 50% of option, I don't know if that's a typo, but can you explain, is that additional cost if I want a cart?
No, that's if you want another trash can. Like, you know, some people need to pay or want another trash can, right? So that's basically whichever option you go with. If you need a second can, not a yard debris can,
Not a
but
yard
a
debris.
second trash can, it would be 50% of that cost of whichever option you choose. So, for example, the base would be around $10.50 or so for a second can, trash can. So we didn't ask for like a second yard debris can price or anything like that. And I will say too, to that, when, you know, and it's really getting into the operational side, which could come further down the line, but my guess is if we do the bi-weekly pickup with bulk, so you want the bulk picked up, we probably would have to do away with the can. Just from an operational perspective, they're probably going to want to pick that all together with one truck, and they'll probably use a claw truck. So they're not going to want the can where they have to send, because, you know, the can, they're going to send the trucks with the automated units to dump the can. So, but again, that's something further down the line we would
Okay.
discuss with whoever, with any of the vendors. Like I said, they are all fairly open to different options without really changing the cost or operational wise. So,
Well, let's make note of that for future discuss once we get to that point, if we get to
Right.
that point, because you know, been hearing from a lot of folks, think vast majority of people are excited about the yard debris. The question that pops up is, do I have to do more work and bag my own? I know some cities out there you can get an additional cart if you don't want a bag. So once we get to that point, I'd love to, you know, explore that further. But can you explain Amway's performance in other cities? Have y'all looked into that research? Right, if I'm applying for a job, I'd love to get a referral from someone from hiring someone.
so we looked through all of their references. I don't have their actual RFP, but that was part of the RFP. I
Okay.
know for a fact they service Noonan locally. So like around here, I know they're servicing Noonan. I'd have to go back through the RFP when we did it to see all of theirs, but I will say they were right there with with Republic and GFL as far as having the equipment ready to service the city. Like, that was our main goal. That's why cost was hidden from every evaluator that evaluated it, right? The difference between a bid and an RFP is a bid, you're looking for the lowest price, right? The lowest responsible bidder. In an RFP, you're looking at a multitude of things, because this is a major undertaking. This is a huge service delivery that could make or break, you know. So you're looking at all of those things before you even remotely look at cost. Because yes, cost plays a factor, but the execution of the service is more important.
Thank you. And Matt, one more question. In terms of how this is from an admin standpoint, this essentially is, there's no pass through the city. This is between household and vendor. There's no administrative costs added to the city for this transition, just to be Like the city is taken out of the equation here.
I would say sort of.
Yeah.
Right? It's taken out on the admin. We're not doing the billing, right? We're not doing that. Cinnamon in Public Works currently, right now, people will call when they have issues with their trash service. She has contacts with all of those vendors. She typically resolves a lot of those issues. I'm not saying we'll be completely pulled out of that stream because we're never gonna, if somebody calls us, we're gonna try to help them and try to fix it. The beauty of one provider is it's one contact, right? And again, all three of them are willing, they're going to provide a portal. So like when somebody says they have a missed pickup, instead of calling a bunch of people to get the data, to get the camera footage, to see if the truck went by there, to get the GPS, like there will be a portal that the city can actually access and kind of get that information instantaneous from that vendor. So it'll actually probably improve that aspect. But yes, to your question, we are pulled out of as far as the billing or any of that goes, but we still play a role in helping resolve issues or stuff that may come up.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
So this is an issue where I've definitely been torn and I see both sides of this. A couple of questions I have, and I already know the answer to some of these, but some of the things weren't in this presentation, so there are questions that I had previously, but one of them is the price. How long is the contract with this company, whoever we choose? How long
Yep.
would that be for,
So,
without changing?
can you go? I think there's a couple of slides after the questions. Okay, so let's start here. So this is what the RFP stated, right? The RFP gave an annual adjustment factor based on CPI and fuel index. And I put in an example from last year, but we capped it at 3%. So like if we did this last year based on those two factors, you would have had a 3.36 increase, but it would have been capped at 3. Now, what we did do is we reached out to all 6 vendors and asked them, okay, is there any way that you could guarantee a rate for the term? Well, actually, if you want to go to the next slide, I think it's got the actual questions and responses. So, yes, these were the questions that were sent out by Angela. Would you be willing to lock in your proposed first-year price and hold that rate with no escalation for the full 5-year term? If not, what is the lowest maximum price increase you could commit to for years 2 through 5? So, Amway said they would hold their price unless fuel increased above $5.50, at which point they would want to implement a fuel surcharge. And they would hold it for the first 3 years. Year 4 and 5 would just be calculated based on what we put in the RFP up to a maximum of 3%. Republic said they can't keep rates firm for the first two. For years 2 through 5, the adjustment rate would be 3% or 3.5%, but the RFP capped it at 3%. So that's just the response we got back. If we're not able to, or GFL wasn't able to commit for the entire 5-year term, they would work with the city to establish a reasonable, predictable escalation structure. And then the next slide, we get into the others, Red Oak, Ryland, and Waste Pro. They can offer no rate increase they'll hold their rate for the first 2 years, and for 3, 4, and 5, they would cap theirs at a maximum of 2%. Ryland said no with a 5% cap for 2 through 5. Waste Pro said no, but they would hold it at 3%, which was essentially what we had in the RFP. So out of all of the responses, and then you go to the top 3 that actually were at the top of the reviews, that would be the first page that had Amwaste, GFL, and Republic, with Amwaste saying they would lock it for 3 years and wouldn't increase unless fuel rised above $5.50. So that's kind of what we got from them. So
Okay.
that's a.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. I know in speaking to some people, one of the things that they experience with their trash hauler is unexpected price increases. So if this is something that we were to do, I would definitely want to be able to have a system where our residents would be able to anticipate what those might look like. So thank you for doing that. Another question I had is someone was worried about if their services are canceled, that there might be a penalty that they have to pay in canceling a contract in order for the city to come in and provide the service through a single hauler. What would that process look like?
I think Ted could probably answer this as far as them having a contract. I believe the Solid Waste Act allows a municipality to move forward with the exclusive waste hauler, and it voids all.
Once the city enters the arena under the intergovernmental or supplemental powers clause of the Georgia, under the
He didn't think
There
you
we
had
go.
to talk.
under the supplemental powers clause of the Georgia Constitution, the city can provide waste services, okay? The cases that have interpreted that provision, along with the Solid Waste Act, allow cities and counties both to provide for a sole provider to do it. Legally, it can be done.
And so if a resident has a contract with a company, then that company, because the city has the right to do that, that company could not make the person then pay a penalty in order
Correct,
for that.
because they no longer have the authority to do the business in the city.
Okay. All right, thank you. You may have mentioned this earlier. I think you touched on it, but with the customer service requirements, how do you track things like how many seconds does it take to answer calls, things like
They
that?
have to provide reports.
So they're
monthly
tracking it,
reports.
and
Yes.
then they're reporting. Okay. Would yard debris go to our compost site?
No.
They have just their
That
own compost.
wherever they chose to take the yard debris, but they would not be utilizing the compost site, and the compost site would stay open for anybody that wanted to utilize it as well.
Okay. I also had the same yard debris container question, and that sounded like it wasn't firmed.
I think we have options, but I mean, we didn't really pry real deep into all of those options. I mean, we're not, as we move in, if we move in any direction, like those would be I guess the smaller things we would kind of figure out with whoever.
Yeah.
Because we stated we wanted the container, so that's the way they approached the RFP.
Yeah. I have a feeling that no part of this is going to feel like a small part to our citizens. They're going to definitely have some opinions on this. I know one was, they definitely were worried about having to bag up things versus being able to just put it on the street curb. Okay, you answered that one. Oh, there was one comment that I heard. So for instance, this one resident had a question that she has a business and she takes her residential trash to her business because her business pays for a dumpster. If a resident's able to prove that they take care of their trash in another way that isn't going to, I see Al shaking his head at me. But if they're already paying for a trash service in some other way, is there a way for them to opt out?
I mean, not the way we were directed to write the RFP. I mean, I guess that's a decision that council could make. I mean,
Okay.
as far as,
All right, and I kind of think, I know the answer to that, but I was just wanted to ask. And right now, currently in our ordinance, even though we have 3 providers that our residents can choose from, we don't have it mandated that they have to have a trash service. Is that correct? And so we
That's
would have to
correct.
make a change to our ordinance in order to implement
I
this.
think, yeah, we would have to make a change regardless if you move forward with this, because we currently have the franchise agreement and everything else in our ordinance. So yeah, you would have to
Okay.
change the ordinance.
Pollard is one of the 3 currently, right?
Correct.
Do you know why they weren't one of the ones that came to the table?
They didn't submit a response. I didn't ask Angela or anybody to reach out to Pollard to ask why. I think when this has come up before in the past, they've never really responded to it. I think they prefer the way they operate, but I don't have any.
Could I answer?
Yeah.
I'm actually friends with Sonny Pollard,
Okay.
and I think the upfront cost of getting the equipment necessary to serve this many customers was not something they wanted to embark on.
Okay, thank you. I guess one of the hesitations I have is that because Amwaste isn't one of the current three, no one in our city has a standing relationship with that company. And so I guess there was a hope that I had that one of the three that provide services right now would win out, and there would be some amount, percentage of our current, residents that would have a history with that company. So, I guess it just gives me a little bit of pause. And I am just very interested to hear the comments coming at us tonight. So thank you for anyone who is here for this. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Okay. I have a couple of questions, as everybody obviously has. Okay, landscape debris, when it goes to the curb, can be bagged or in the cart?
Depending on how, no contract's been written, right? But they were all open to either options. Our RFP stated that we wanted the yard debris cart, so that's still a choice that could be made. We just asked if we wanted to do it this way, would that be an option? Just to know, where we stand option-wise, but it could go either way as council chooses. It could be in a cart for yard debris, and whatever fits in the cart is what goes, and you can set limbs on the side, but that's it. Or it could be bagged and limbs on the side, picked up, with bulk. It depends on the operation, right? It's all operational based, how they run it.
So then, I understand you said also that they could come around with the claw and pick things up with the claw, whether it's bulk or landscape debris. But you can't pick up leaves with a claw. The companies that pick up leaves curbside that are not bagged or whatever have one of those trucks that actually suck the leaves up.
Well,
Is that an option?
I don't believe with any of these providers that they have that capability. I think if you didn't do the cart where you would put the leaves, you would have to bag the leaves and then they would pick them up.
Okay, so in Florida, where I had landscape debris pickup for 14 years where I lived in Port Charlotte, if you put things out in a trash can, they would take it, landscape debris. But if you bagged it, you had to put it in a paper bag. The big paper bags that they sell at Home Depot and some of the other stores. You could not put it out in plastic because the plastic is not biodegradable, and they could not dump that with the leaves where they had to dump it. So I guess the issue, I need to know, or I feel like I need to know, because bags, when you have to buy paper bags to put the lawn debris in, is not the cheapest option either. You have to do a lot of work to bag your leaves like that.
I don't know that.
Okay. I know. These are questions that we may have to ask some more answers of various, whoever, we decide to go to, if anybody. So large lots that have a lot of trees, how is the tree matter going to be dealt with?
So.
Like cutting down a whole tree?
Yes, so cutting down a whole tree and throwing it on the curb is probably, that's probably not gonna be, the way to have it picked up.
Could they cut it into 4-foot lengths?
I think 5-foot lengths
5 foot.
are what they prefer to have. But I believe, diameter is gonna play a role. And typically, if you have something that big fall down, most people, they may cut some of it up, but it depends on if they can even move it, right? So, there's going to be a limit on the size. I'll say that. There has to be a limit on the size.
Okay, let's talk trees then. did anybody along the trail discuss where they could actually go onto the property to pick up trees with the claw? Or not an option at all, or?
I think my guess would be that none of them would be willing to do that from a liability standpoint.
Okay, cause some of the lots that we have, let's take flagpole lots or flag lots, shared driveways. Would they go up a shared driveway to remove, tree debris further up? I mean, I'm looking at this as an alternative to, we banned burning, so now people that have large lots that have to deal with a lot of trees have to haul the trees away themselves. If they can cut the trees and get them to a certain point on their lot, how is that gonna be picked up?
I mean, the way the RFP, it's all curbside, so if it's a shared driveway, I don't think they're gonna drive up somebody's driveway to pick it up. It would have to be at the curbside. Like, it would be curbside yard waste and debris pickup. So, again, we didn't ask those questions. We
Right.
didn't dive that deep. So I don't have those.
But if you move further with this, and we
We
decide,
can ask those questions.
yeah, we decide who the potential award winner would be, we could have a meeting where we bring them in and you all, we can ask questions and you all
Okay.
can kind of decide.
So then let me switch off to a different part of this.
Okay.
Recycling, exactly what do the companies, the top three that we're looking at, do you have any idea about what things they will recycle? Is it just like what we have going on right now, or does
Yes.
it include
So
anything additional?
Amwaste does everything that we have now: plastics 1 and 2, paper, cardboard, aluminum, metal. So it's very similar to the recyclables that you have now.
But no glass and no
No glass.
styrofoam?
No styrofoam.
Okay. But they would take cardboard.
Yes, ma'am.
Al's probably sitting there going, that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, it's a concern to me if it'll reduce the amount of recycling that we're having to handle through the recycling center that's operated by Keep Peachtree City Beautiful. I mean, we certainly don't wanna increase what we're burdening them with. We'd like to decrease it if we can. I already asked that one. Okay, that's the end of my questions for now.
Okay, with that, I would like to hear public comments from our citizens at 4 minutes each. Would you raise your hand if you wish to speak public comment? I see 2. Jasmine, do you have a list or?
3.
3, thank you. Do you have a list or no? All right, if you have your hand up, first person, please take the microphone, and again, we'll pull up that 4-minute timer, guys. And thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hold on, Randy, that's not on. We can't hear you.
It is on?
It
Is it?
Okay, get up close.
Get close. There we go.
There you go. Get close.
All right. You served up on a big platter, Mr. Miller, exactly what I'm here to talk about. And that's the continued, well, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Randy Huff. I've lived here for 55 years. I live at 289 Spear Road in Peachtree City. That, by the way, is a road without curbs, which is essential to understand in your argument that we bring things to curbside, but I'll get to that in a moment. I live on a common driveway with 3 other persons, the property for which aggregates to about 13, 14 acres, something like that. My home is on 3.4 acres. I'm up here away from Spear Road and 2 houses here before you get to Spear Road, and we share a common driveway that's 800 feet long. It would be a misjudgment once again, to get this one-size-fits-all mentality where you look at all these options, all right, and then you say we get for yard waste a 16-gallon container. I have 16 tons of trees lying on the ground right now that have been on hold because they can't be burned without the burn list. In the past, I've burned these trees. It's impossible. We can't have people come up to on the property as through our driveway, as you just mentioned, and we can't burn them. What do I do now? I can't put 16 tons worth of tree trunks. I have 362 linear feet right now of pine trees that are 16 inches in diameter that are lying on the ground waiting to be disposed of. Your RFP apparently didn't cover that kind of yard waste. And, well, you didn't think of us. Well, that's what happened when you banned burning. You didn't think of us in the state residential 3-acre and plus, or even 2-acre and plus properties. So I'm quite dismayed that I'm sitting here having to go through this again. I spoke once before about what about us over here in the state residential area. It's not going to work. I can't participate in something like that with yard waste because you haven't accommodated it and nobody knows how to claw it up and take it away. You're not coming up my driveway with industrial machinery and tear it all up in order to, and you couldn't maneuver. And once you get up there, it's only 9 feet wide. No one considered that. And so I ask again, and we're coming to these solutions, that you think of people with unusual properties. We're not that numerous, but our problems are 10 times bigger than what you've talked about here tonight. And we deserve consideration when things like this come up. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Wait, I have more to say.
You have time.
I've invited Councilman Holland, he came, and Mr. Polachek, he came out to my yard to look. I invited Ms. Johnson, Councilwoman Johnson. I left you a message on your phone to come out to my house, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's still open if you want to come.
Okay.
Okay. And my good friend, Councilwoman Brown, seen the property, and she understands it from drone services that she has apps to. You have to see it to believe it. If you come out to these properties, sir, you won't fail to think about what their needs are when we make these kinds of changes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Yes.
Can I make one comment, Mayor?
Sure. Yes.
I want to say Mr. Miller he put this RFP out at the request of council. So when you were addressing Mr. Miller, he did what council instructed him to do. So please refrain from
Please remember that.
negative
This is a
comments to our
council
staff.
issue.
I just met you tonight. You're a wonderful guy. I figured you, but you were introducing some guy doing it, so you see you carry the burden.
I understand.
All right. Thank you.
Jane Trammell, Lakeside Drive. One of the things that bothers me about this is this is once again a government entity taking away choice. And that really rarely ever works out that well. I graduated from high school in 1960. Our country was number 1 or 2 in the world. We went and let the government give us the education department, and hasn't that worked well? When you take away competition, you're hurting the American, as far as I'm concerned, the capitalistic system. I want to be able to choose who I want. And I do not want 5 people or 6 people making that decision for me. I think we ought to be able to choose ourselves what we want. We have 3 companies, and I want you to remind you that if we go down to 1, we put a lot of people out of work, of companies that have been here for years. And I don't particularly like that idea either. I just think competition is better than anything else, and I don't like the government coming up with every single idea because it quite frequently does not work out well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Valerie Alexander. I live in Braylon Village. I only am speaking because 3 questions came up in the course of this discussion for me that I would love it to be considered or addressed in the future when you present this. My first was to Councilwoman Johnson's question. We have what seems to be a winner who none of us know. Is there any room for the top 3 to then be asked to resubmit given the parameters that the winner came back with, so that maybe a company that we're familiar with can see if they can be made to match what has been offered by the company that's leading out in front? And I don't need that answered. I'm just pointing out that that would be a wonderful consideration. The other is, I wasn't clear if I'm going to get a choice of which of the options there's going to be. They have option, I guess, tall option, grande option, venti, and does that mean this council is going to choose which of those options the city gets, or is the company being chosen, and then I as a homeowner get to choose which of the 3 I want in my home? And then the third question I have is, included in this was a study done of the environmental costs and the damage to our roads of having 3 trucks. I know in my neighborhood we have 3 sets of trucks coming through our neighborhood every single week, and that's it's a small neighborhood, and I don't think it's great for our roads, and I know it's not great for our air, and I would love to see that being brought into consideration in the further conversations about this. But I really appreciate all the work everybody did on this, and I just wanted to present those ideas.
Thank you.
Can I answer these questions real quick, Mayor,
Yes.
before we have our next?
Yes.
Can you stay up there, Valerie, in case I missed something? All right, first question was about rebidding or re-asking for prices. I would say the answer to that is no. We don't usually do any, like we will go back and say best and final when we're doing RFP reviews and stuff, which we did with this. And we did go back and ask questions about locking in price and things like that. But once companies know each other's prices, then you lose that competitive edge. And going back to free market, this is competition. What we just did is the definition of competition between these companies. Options 1, 2, and 3 you're talking about. Your first scenario that you said is the correct answer, where council will have to select if they want the basic option of just what we have now with the 3 companies of trash recycling, option 2 just adding yard waste, and then option 3 adding yard waste and bulk. That would have to be selected for the entire city. You as a citizen, we cannot select a company and then every citizen chooses which version they want. It'll be scenario 1 that you said, and then your last question was.
Are you including the environmental
yes.
costs of having 3 separate companies in your consideration?
We didn't break it down this time because it was broken down very thoroughly in 2019 when Jonathan presented this in 2019. It's the same person who presented this in 2019 when he was asked to by the council then as well. That was the big analysis then, was the damage to our roads with that many trash trucks on them. We care about that. We obviously do, because it does make maintenance where we have to do it more often, and repaving. But I got the feeling from citizenry that that's not a huge concern to citizens. What the concern is price. Like, what's the price? So to me, the focus was what council requested, and what my focus is can we save citizens money at the end of the day? Like, by doing this, can we make it cheaper for our citizens? Overall, day to day, month to month, quarter to quarter. And what was I going to say? I think the other big one is keep Peachtree City beautiful. When we talk with them, there is a real problem of folks that do not have any trash service in our city. And I'm not saying all of them don't do it correctly or take it to the transfer station in Fayette County or whatever they do. But there's a major problem of people that don't have trash service in our city dumping stuff all over in our public bins.
You don't have to convince me that. Where I walk my dog, on the trail where I walk my dog, there's 1 can, and I can't tell you how many times that can is overflowing with bags of somebody's trash, and I don't have a space to put the bag that I have.
So really, the major focus, since we already did the analysis a few years ago, the big thing was, we know that they damage the roads more. So the big thing is price. Can we come in at a price that is reasonably cheap for our citizens, for us to bargain every single single residential in the city? How can we solve the problem of trash everywhere in the city, in our public bins? And another was, I know in the retreat was a talk about with Councilmember Polachek coming on, was the burn ban that we did implement, of how do we help some of the acres or some of the lots that can't burn anymore. I know it doesn't solve your problem, but that was one of the big conversations as well, because some folks can't get to the compost site, they don't have trucks. So how can we, if we're going to do a burn ban, how can people get rid of their landscape debris without dumping in our green belt and things like that? Because we know people dump in our green belt all the time too, which is forbidden in our ordinance, but people do it. So those were kind of 3 or 4 big things that we were thinking about, or council mentioned in the retreat while we were developing this. I'm trying to think if I had any other point. Yeah, go ahead.
Justin, can I respond to one
Yeah.
other thing you said then? I understand that the cost of repaving the roads and road repair is hidden. It doesn't show up in our stormwater bill. It doesn't show
Right.
up on our tax bill. But I think the people of Peachtree City are intelligent enough to understand that when the roads are being damaged, that costs us money too. And so the idea that we just want to save money for everybody by having the lowest dollar cost. The last time I stood at this microphone and spoke, I was saying the cost of creating an unhappy workforce is one of the most expensive hidden costs we have. The cost of destroying our environment is maybe hidden, but it doesn't not exist. And I think the people of Peachtree City are smart enough to see it and to understand that. And so if that becomes part of the discussion, I think there's value to that.
Okay.
Can
Totally
I
agree.
can I
Thank
jump
you,
in on that
Valerie.
because I have.
Yeah, you brought it up earlier.
Let me don't leave. Okay.
She
go
might
ahead
want to
and-
sit down.
Go ahead. If your feet hurt, go ahead and sit.
It's okay.
I'm concerned. I ran some of the numbers. Okay, so if we have 52 trash trucks a year going through on a weekly basis, and 26 recycling trucks going through bi-weekly, that's 78 trucks per year per company times 3 is 234 trips through your neighborhood by trash trucks and recycling trucks. Okay. Under the new proposal, if the 52 trash trucks go through your neighborhood once a week, 52 in a year, 52 recycling trucks, now that may be 26 if it's a bi-weekly recycling, I don't know. I think the recycling truck is gonna go through, but not everybody will be able to put their recycling out every week, according to what I just heard, I don't know. But that would be 52 times that truck goes through. If they pick up landscape waste weekly, that's another 52 trips in a year. And if they pick up the bulk, 26 trips in a year on a bi-weekly basis. That adds up to 182 trucks through the neighborhood. So 234 then goes down to 182. So I think that's a reduction of 22%. And if I'm wrong on the number of landscape waste or recycling trucks or whatever, it could be even lower. But that's about a 22% savings. My way of looking at it, I think that's significant enough that it needs to be looked at. It's not necessarily the overarching primary decision-making factor, but she's right, it's not cheap to pave a street.
And if I could adjust your math a little,
Go ahead.
yes, we're going from 234 to 182,
Two.
but we're adding an extremely valuable service. Right now, the 234 is based on just getting trash pickup and recycling.
Right.
Now you're talking about getting trash pickup, recycling, bulk waste, and yard waste, and still getting a 22% reduction. So that is, it increases even more greatly the value of that change.
Right. Well, prior councils had discussed it, that's why I've always focused on that part of it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, and now you really may sit down.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I'll go
Valerie.
back, I'll go back to council, Mr. Holland.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
do we have one more speaker?
Oh, I'm sorry,
one more.
please. I didn't see you over there.
No, that's all right, I was hiding. Hey, Al Felch, I'm on Lakeside Drive. I guess I have to do a real quick retort to the number of trucks, because those same streets right now are handling about, on average, probably 6 delivery trucks per day, every day. Okay, so this is like 1%. This is a 1 or 2% issue we're talking about with garbage trucks. I think my biggest concern is the idea that that you're gonna select for the entire city the level of service that we have to have. All right, so for many of us, that means our costs will actually go up. It won't go down, right? Because if we just have basic service and now we have to add yard service, cost is probably gonna go up, okay? Not saying there's no value, I'm just saying cost is gonna go up. I am concerned I'm concerned a little bit about the history, frankly, of the vendors that we choose here. Because I've seen too many times with the police station, with Drake Field, with the bridge going over to Chip Island, to, multiple other situations where we've had to go back a year or two later and redo something that was done apparently not properly. Now, I don't know if that was because of the vendor we chose or their equipment they used. I don't know the details. I just know there seems an awful lot of rework here. So I'd be concerned about the lowest price, right? Because the lowest price isn't always the best answer, unfortunately. So I have to be careful about that. And I'd also be concerned about once you get somebody into that situation where they have a four 1-year options, they'll tell you, I won't change my price in 3 years until year 2 comes and they go, I just have to raise my price. And then what's your option gonna be? Your option is gonna be, okay, well, we're not gonna do business with you, let's start this all over again. Now I've got no garbage collection. Okay, so let's just be real about it. Once you get into that situation, you're kind of locked into that situation. That's it. That's all I've got, Alexis. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Can I answer those two?
We still got one.
Yes, and then I still have one more comment.
Oh, well, lowest vendor, I'm not gonna get into. I'll let council get into, let council get into previous projects and why, well, I'll talk about it. I mean, it was a previous managers, a previous administration with a lot of the things we're having to go back and fix, and that is not the way we operate anymore with projects. A lot of the projects that we're doing, we're not going back and fixing them. And I agree with you completely where lowest is not always best. It's what do we have to pay for this thing to, and I'm talking about just infrastructure at this point, handle thousands of people over decades and not have to go back and fix it. So we are absolutely aware of that. And I will point out that this Amwaste was not the lowest bidder.
Yeah, I was gonna interject on that, Justin. They're actually there's 2 bidders below them that were
Number
lower.
3.
So we didn't go with ABC cheapo.
Nope.
We're not just cheaping out, this is the
They
cheapest.
were lower between GFL and Republic, which were the top 3, those 3, but they were not the lowest bidder. And then what was the third question you had? Okay. Okay. But no, they were not the lowest bidder, and we are very cognizant of
Who's third
not
question?
wanting to go back and spend money over and over again and just put Band-Aids on things.
It was the contractual obligations.
After 2 years if he.
So that goes back to the RFP where our RFP says you cannot increase more than 3%.
Well, actually, so Amwaste came back and
With the
answered
lot.
those questions
Yeah.
about holding price for 3 years. When we get to the process of actually establishing a contract, it'll be written into the contract as contractual obligations to hold to what they said,
So there's that, plus in the RFP you can't increase more than 3%. But like you said, they come back and say, oh, we can't do this, we have to increase our price. I mean, honestly, that we have a lot of vendors we work with PD, with fire, with recreation, and I've had people come to me and say, we're going to raise our price, and I say, we're not paying it. You can stay where you are right now, or we're going out, like you're done. And so that's...
Sure, yes. Yeah, we're rolling that way, aren't we?
One more quick question. We say there's 1,400 houses currently not contracted with anybody. What happens if those people decide they're not gonna pay?
Ooh, good question.
That's a good. So we've talked about that as well, and I've updated council on how that would work. If we update and Ted, just tell me if I'm speaking wrong. If we update our ordinance to require it, and everywhere I've ever lived has citywide and countywide service. Even I was this county manager of a county that only had 8,000 people, and we did countywide trash service. If your ordinance says it and people don't pay it, we get the report from them that they don't pay. We can come cite you, and we can cite you every single day that you don't pay your bill. And if you don't pay your bill, then you eventually end up in municipal court. So, am I wrong?
That is what other cities and counties have implemented. You're correct.
Okay. I think I saw one more hand up. Yes.
Good evening, council. My name is Chandra Wright. I live in the Everton community, and I, in my house, am the recycle warden. So my question is around recycling. I would like to understand, will the types of things that we can recycle be expanded? I'm very, conscientious of we can recycle this. I'm the one going through our recycling bin saying, you can't recycle this, and this goes into our normal trash. So I would like to understand if that service will be expanded for us. I'd also like to hear a little bit about how the recycling waste is disposed of by these vendors. And then I think you just answered my last question, which was how are we going to actually reduce the number of people who were dumping in the public waste bin? So I think you just answered that. So that's what I'd like to understand more. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Amways can probably do this way better than me. It may be, you may want to actually bring them in and have a presentation done by them. They did a phenomenal job with their recycling presentation. So I will try to do it as much justice, but I know plastics 1 and 2, right? Cardboard, paper, all of those things we label. Now, I don't think a market exists for the styrofoam or for the glass currently, but I would say if we want to have a big recycling conversation or even further details, that we do we ask them, invite them for a presentation and let them speak, because they own and operate the recycling. They can tell us way better than I could even convey.
Did
how
I hear
that
you say
works.
they are servicing Noonan?
They are currently.
Maybe if
That's
we
the
had-
one that just pops out when when we went through their references and what they do. So that was the one that popped out just because it's close.
I think this is a big decision because we are this would be mandatory. I think it would be a great idea to have Amwaste come in and talk about what their services are and what the possibilities are. I know you could maybe prime them with the questions that were asked tonight, and we could have a pretty meaningful conversation.
I think all of the vendors are here, so they've heard you loud and clear.
Oh, got it.
good.
That's wonderful.
Good.
No more questions. We have opportunity coming up August 6th and August 20th with city council meetings coming up, and that might be a good opportunity to hear from at least one of our vendors. Jasmine, did you have a comment? Anything you wanted to add?
I think Paul Schultz wanted to make a comment.
Yep, I see some hands up.
Oh, okay,
Yep,
I thought you were
okay.
done. Okay.
Paul, you want to take the microphone? We'll pull up that timer again.
So just a very quick comment on data. I like to pretend I'm data driven. I like the idea of the city negotiating a contract. I know there are exceptions that are really meaningful to people to have them, so figuring out how to do that. February of 2023, per quarter, I paid $59 to haul trash away. And I'll just go through the numbers, how it has increased until May of 2025. So in 3 years, 59 to 78 to 82 to 84, then $87 a quarter, a 49% increase. And so I really, really like the idea, and inflation hasn't been 49% over 3 years, right? It's been high, but it hasn't been 49% high. So I like the idea if someone can get in there and negotiate and say, whatever it starts at, 3, 4, 5% a year is great in comparison to 15% a year. So that's my point.
Thank you. I did see other hands up, and that's how we're rolling tonight. Did I see another hand up? Yes, in the back.
Mayor, can I address
Please.
what Mr. Schultz just said?
Please.
Other jurisdictions that have done it typically have, it's normally a year-to-year agreement, but with the ability to have automatic increases based on CPI. That is how other jurisdictions have done this.
Thank you. Yes, welcome.
Hello. My name is Amber, and I was just wondering why the two issues of switching to one trash service and making it mandatory for all citizens is like lumped together. They have to be connected, or I just don't understand why they're one and yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think on an operational standpoint, that's the way you get the price is by bidding out the entire city. And then the second one is an issue we've talked about, is that we know there are 10% at least of households out there that don't do anything. And again, I'm not saying that all of them dump in public places, but some are. And so I think it comes back to, how do you solve that problem without making it mandatory? Is my,
So I think she's asking, what if we just made it mandatory?
Oh, and then have 3. Well, and I think, but that comes back to, again, getting the best price you can with the one, and then also from a city standpoint, this comes back to where we talked about Cinnamon, who works in Public Works, is dealing with 3 different companies. They don't answer to us in any way. We don't have any teeth to make them do anything. When you do a single city contract, we actually have teeth. We can actually negotiate. We can do competitive negotiations when we need to. We can enforce what we need to with the company, and keep track of everything a lot easier than if you have 3 operating, or even 5 or 6 in the city. And I think that comes down to, what does the council want to do via the citizens? Because we don't have to mandate it. We don't have to. But I do think operationally, it is an easier system.
Thank you. Thanks for speaking up. Did I see any other hands up? Yes.
Hi, Rob Sicenti, Rolling Green. If a trash company had increased my rate by 49% in 3 years, that's up to me as the consumer to then go to one of the other companies and see if the cost is lower. I don't rely on you guys to negotiate that for me, okay? And I want to know the answer to the question, what really is in it for you? Because I don't buy the excuse that it's the number of trucks on the road, because like the one gentleman said, the delivery trucks nonstop. I don't see you guys limiting the amount of construction going on. It's the most amount of construction I've seen in Peachtree City in 10 years. So what's the real reason? How many jobs in the city government are getting created because of this? Because you guys said you're going to track the trash, and there's a whole lot of data that's going to be collected about the trash that's collected. So how many city jobs now are going to be collected, are going to be created as a result of this?
0.
Thank you.
Justin?
0.
How so?
We're not creating any jobs. It'll be.
So he's going to track all
No, the company tracks all the data.
The company provides reports.
If you all could step to the microphone.
So the reports will probably, they're going to all come to us as a city as a whole. It'll be very easy, very detailed. Cinnamon will look at those reports. Obviously, if we have an enforcement piece for people who haven't paid or don't have service, code enforcement would get involved. There's obviously,
like we do with business licenses.
there would be people involved in it, but there would be no job creation out of it. It would be people serving the roles they currently do now. We track who doesn't have trash service. Really, we get reports as it sits now from the 3 providers of who has trash service. This is how Al gets his number. We have the people who get stormwater bills, and we can compare the numbers and see the discrepancy from stormwater billing to
our goal. So my goal as a city manager is to not do anything ineffectively or inefficiently, ever, with your tax money. We take it very seriously as a staff, and this is the best staff I've ever worked with in my career. And every single person that we work with, especially our directors, our chiefs, people sitting over here, they don't waste money. They don't. And just to answer your question about just why are we doing this, from a staff perspective, we were asked to by council. Council talked about it as a group, and they asked us to look into it, and that's where this came from. So that, I guess, really not to pass the buck to council, but the question for me would be, why are the council members asking us to do this?
I think for me, the impetus was It was definitely a number of trucks on my residential city street, knowing that we have a good 10% of our households who are most likely dropping their household trash into the blue bins in our parks and along our paths. Also, we did a cursory look at 14 different communities and learned that in comparison with Peachtree City, the same communities, when we did our pay and benefits study a couple years ago, we compared ourselves with other communities ranging from Johns Creek, Suwannee, Chamblee, Noonan, you name it. We've learned that out of 14 communities that we often compare ourselves with, 11 of them have some kind of a municipal program. The 3 that don't are Suwannee, Chamblee, and Johns Creek. Out of those 3, 2 have a burn ban and 1 doesn't. So I don't know, it just helped me to know it isn't anomalous to want to have a municipal service. We get economy of scale, we get reduced price, we might get improved services at a reduced price, and I think that's worth looking at. We're not going to make a decision tonight, but I would like to continue the conversation, get some of these questions answered, and hear from at least AmWaste.
I'll also add, for me, the yard waste thing in response to the burn ban, and there was no alternative options for folks. So when I was campaigning last fall, which is grueling, but one of the best parts is talking to citizens about local issues that are impacting the quality of life of Peachtree City. And when I would go door knock and bring up an idea to do yard debris pickup, majority of folks are very excited about it. And that is what inspired me to elevate that after the election at our council retreat, which then transitioned to the idea of maybe transitioning to a trash haul service. So we said it was worth researching for our staff to look at what that would look like in Peachtree City.
I'll pile on with Councilman Polachek. In 2022, when I was running, this was a thing that was talked about quite a bit, was how do we get 6 trucks per week going by your house, which is what I have at my house. 6 garbage trucks a week go past my house. So I don't know if your calculations are quite what my neighborhood is, Suzanne, but certainly there is a lot of trucks on the street. But that's not the issue. The issue really is a quality of life, taking care of business, and let's remember, we're getting to be a bigger city now. We're not a little city. We're not 5,000 people anymore. We're closing in on 45,000 people here. We got a lot of people to serve, and we got to make sure that we keep our city clean. We don't need our cart paths to be a dump site. And so that's another reason why I'm in favor of this. But more importantly is, we've got a staff that did a heck of a job on this. I talked to them over the past few weeks as they put it together, and I can tell you what, they spent a lot of time on this. And they really asked the type of questions you're all asking. So I'm glad that you stepped up to the microphone. We're going to have 2 more meetings, Madam Mayor, is that right, on this topic?
We'll see. We'll
Okay.
continue the conversation.
We'll continue this conversation. So if you do have some additional ones, certainly bring them back. Last but not least is the yard waste issue. That was a big one for me. And I know that some people, one of the gentlemen here just got up and said, I've got 3.5 acres of land and I got a lot of yard waste. You know what? I know that those big claws, and this is something that the garbage people the waste haulers can come up with, those big claws can have a lot of hydraulics to them, and they certainly can pick up large pieces, heavy pieces. You know, pick up a 5-foot, 18-inch round log and throw it in there for recycling. The question is can they do it? And I believe they should be able to answer that when they come in here and talk to us, because that's going to be a big deal. Even for a lot like mine, I had to pay to have it all taken away. A lot of citizens can't do that. So I think it's not only is it a cost reduction and a cost stabilization with what we're trying to do, but the additional services you're going to be getting for the same price seems to be something that I think everyone should embrace. But I will look for more of this later, Madam Mayor.
Council members Johnson or Brown, last comment?
I take it the citizens were done. That was the end of everybody. Yeah, I'm not gonna make any, I'm just gonna say it straight out. I voted in favor of the burn ban and have regretted it every day since. I think we need to provide something for the people with 1 acre or larger lots that's a legitimate option so that they don't end up stockpiling dead trees, debris, and burnable material and end up with some sort of a fire danger like California faced. That's all I'm gonna say about the burn ban. I have very differing opinions on both ends with regard to this. I see all the advantages, I hear and I see all the disadvantages. Go ahead. We're
Yeah.
not making a decision tonight, so I have time to decide.
Yeah, and ditto. You know, I feel like of anyone on council, this isn't something that has been my platform. But as a council, we work as a majority. So when my fellow council members choose to go this direction, and even though it may not be the direction I'm looking at going in, I support my fellow council members. The way that they care for this city may look different, and we may have different opinions about how things should be done, but I will tell you that I respect every one of them up here. And they care about all of our citizens. And, you know, just because one of you has a opinion in one way, we listen to all of our citizens, and each of them talk to citizens that I don't talk to, and I talk to citizens that they don't talk to. And even though this wasn't something that I was necessarily pushing, I've had a lot of conversations about it since this has been an issue. And it's been interesting to me that far and away, the conversations I have been greatly in favor of this. So if you sit here, and if this is the way that this decision is made, that we bring in a single trash hauler, I understand that there will be some loud voices that will be very much in disagreement with that choice, and I understand, and that's our job, is to listen to everybody and to make those decisions. So I appreciate your question tonight and the opportunity to answer this, and I want you to know that even though we make a decision that you don't agree with, it doesn't mean we don't hear you. It is us as a council trying to make a decision for the best of our community at large. And there is no decision that we make as council members that all of you like. That's not an experience that we get to have. Every decision we make, someone's gonna be upset and someone's gonna be happy. There's no way everybody in this room is gonna say we're all 100% on the same page. That's just not gonna happen. And I think as leaders, I think a good leader goes back and considers decisions that they made in the past, you know? And so when we talk about the burn ban and things like that, I do believe that making a decision, I like to have it in place for a period of time before we go back and look at it. But I do believe that good leadership, we don't sit here and say we make perfect decisions. I think we are willing to be humble and say, okay, we made this decision, it's served this number of people, can we tweak it? And I think that's a conversation worth having. Anyhow, so to answer your question, that is why I am here talking about this.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on. Thanks very much for
I will
all the
ask one
input.
question, Mayor.
Yes.
How does council want to proceed with this? What is the next step?
So I think the majority of us want to continue the conversation. We have an opportunity in the future to bring in waste, and let's find out what some of the questions that were asked tonight. Let's see if we can get answers.
Okay.
The track record of success in surrounding communities, how yard debris is picked up, bagged, bin, neither, or something else. And I think we just need to talk with that potential vendor about the level of options that we might choose as a city.
Okay. So if AmWaste can do this, would everyone on council be okay if we scheduled that for the work session in August?
Yeah.
That August 2nd or whatever number it is?
I think so.
Sixth?
It's the
Whatever
6th.
it is.
6th, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So we will also, so we're all on the same page. We will not be asking for any action or vote at that meeting as well. It will be a discussion with AmWaste.
Thank you.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. We have discussion item B, annexation study draft. Justin?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm about to call up KB Advisory Group, who is our partner in performing our annexation study for the city. Since 2023, Council's been discussing a potential annexation study. The last study we did was in 2014, before this council, before a lot of us on staff, and it was time to look at our borders and see about updating that 2014 study and what it would look like potentially on some key areas of focus around our city for potential annexation. So with that, I'm not going to ramble on, but I'm going to introduce Mr. Jeff Koski and Mr. Trevor Butler, who are both with KB Advisors, to present us with the first initial draft version of this feasibility study for annexation. And they'll go through their findings so far. And I will note for Jeff that this is not the final version. As with trash, we're not asking for any kind of action tonight. This is just an initial draft of their first findings. And after this meeting, we will have a public feedback meet and greet probably next week on this, since we're going to release it to the public. And then at some point in the future, we will be coming back for further consideration with council. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mayor and council, pleasure to be with you again. You may remember I was here a few months ago as we kicked this thing off, the Peachtree City annexation study. We are, let's be clear up front, we're not done. This is an interim update. As City Manager Strickland said, we plan to be back in town probably next week. We're working on some logistics, but we've got a date and time set up next week that will confirm that we'll be here to kind of talk and over an extended period of time about our findings. So we are still putting some of the findings together because we want to wait and make sure we hear public input at that final meeting. So
Jeff, can we call that an open house? Is
Yes.
that fair?
Fair.
So
Open
we invite
house.
the public in,
Yes.
ask questions, walk around, look at some drawings.
That's it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll be here for about 3 hours to chat through it. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, therefore, like I said, this is not a finalized draft yet. For some reason, the T has found a different line over there. It's having a hard time. It's drooping. But this is a draft. And like I said, the answers are not final yet because we're still getting feedback, and we want to do that public part first. So know that as we get into this. So this, again, is the draft is coming together. This is really the initial kind of context setting piece up front. You can see it's hard to see the methodology. I apologize for that. But basically what you're seeing there is that we did a data analysis. We looked closely at the budget. We looked at your land uses. We looked at your costs in your budget by line item. We also looked at the revenues by line item. We lumped the costs and the revenues together, residential and commercial. And so that's going to be a big thing to kind of keep in mind as we go through here, residential versus commercial. And so we got a real good sense of how the city's working, how the service costs go out to your citizens and to your businesses, and how your citizens and businesses pay for those costs. And then we applied those to potential annexation areas, right? And so a potential annexation area is a place that must be attached to, and go back to page 5. So again, this map is a little small to see on the screen, but you can see the big green blob in the middle. Sorry, go back to page 5, please. The big green blob in the middle, that's your current city boundaries, right? If you see orange on the map, that's another city. So you see Sonoy to the south, you see Tyrone to the northwest, and you see Fayetteville to the northeast. And then you see the different colors other than green or orange. Those are the potential annexation areas. So those are the larger areas that we looked at, and we said if the city wanted to do what we might call a proactive annexation, right? If the city says, let's go out and annex some land in a large swath, what does it look like? would it be feasible? And those are the areas that we looked at. I want to point out, to be very transparent, there is no color on the other side of the county line, right? So to the west, to the left of the big green blob is Coweta County. And I just pointed out here, we did not, KB Advisory Group did not look at anything outside of Fayette County. So there was, to us, again, our instructions were to only look at things inside the county, not outside the county. I know there's been discussions about things outside the county. I know some of you, we heard that people are interested in hearing about what's going on over there. This report and this study did not look and does not look and does not anticipate and will not recommend any annexations outside of the county. So just know that. And again, I know there's been discussions. I'm not trying to say we're not aware of what's going on, at least at a top level. But the instructions to us in this report is that we're looking at only these areas on the map that are in not green and not orange. So can you go back one page, please? So that just want to be clear up front about that. The map, I think it's very important. And so on page 4, again, just the big idea is, why are we doing this? This is what was explained to us. Why are we doing this? Again, really looking for commercial opportunities. That's why it says industrial land availability, commercial tax-based growth, desire for expanded employment opportunities. All of those deal with commercial real estate. And at the core, I would say, of that is that, the idea is that if you were to annex land, commercial land is potentially more preferable because it's more economical, right? And so it costs over $6,000 per residential acre to service your residential acres, and you all have a high service level, right? In this city, you all been talking about it tonight. You have a high service level. It costs money to service that. So when you bring in residential properties, they are, for 90%, they're a money loser, right? They don't pay enough taxes to service the costs. And so our number crunching was looking at these different areas, and basically the bottom line is, if the area had a lot of residential, the large proactive annexation idea is a fiscal loser, just to be, kind of a frank, right? If we took these swaths, next page, please, the map again. If we took these swaths, right, and we'll go through them one by one here in just a second, but all of these swaths, the more residential you have, the bigger money loser it is. And so what we've done is, we've done some number crunching in the back to say that you might annex these, you might choose to annex these and change the land use, right? Because you have land use controls as a city. They could become profitable if some of this residential became commercial and commercial landowners built on the land and they paid higher property taxes. But as it stands today, a lot of these areas would be fiscal losers to annex in large swaths, okay? The one that we are kind of leaning on right now is a largely commercial area. It's the area between Fayetteville to the northwest and the city. So it's that light blue section along 54 up there. That one is largely commercial. It's between Fayetteville and Peachtree City. And so we think that one could be a option for a large scale annexation in the near term. These other areas, they have good potential. There's reasons you might want to annex them, but fiscal benefit wouldn't necessarily be one of them because of the large areas of residential. But there could be other reasons to annex areas rather than just fiscal. And last thing I'll say, and then we'll go through quickly, I'm going to hand it over to Trevor to go through each of these large scale areas that we looked at. The last thing I'll say is that the annexation possibilities are not limited to these large areas, right? And so I think that's where this is going, is that this first look at these large areas to say, should we go and preemptively, proactively annex large swaths of land next to the city? I think our analysis is, there's not a compelling reason to do a lot of that. There might be one reason to do that, but there might be compelling reasons to go micro, right? To go smaller, to say there may be parcels within some of these larger swaths that council may choose to annex over time. They may already be commercial, they may have a planned development, they may be conservation areas that you want to keep for a park, I don't know. But there could be opportunities for annexation that are not necessarily large scale, but they're, you know, parcel by parcel or groups of parcel at a time. And that is a possibility. We'll address that in the final report. But tonight, we're going to go quickly through these larger areas just to give you a sense of the analysis that went into these larger areas. These are pretty much the only areas that could be annexed into the city because they're contiguous. There's a little bit of land that we could have looked at, but it's all residential already. That's probably not going to make sense anyway. So Trevor's going to get up, talk about these large areas that we looked at just briefly, but also know that there could be other potentials at a smaller scale. And then also know that we'll be back next week to kind of be here to talk in detail through a lot of this because it's a lot. There's a lot going on here. It's a lot of numbers. So anyway, we're going to spend just 5 more minutes going through each of these pieces just so you can kind of get a sense of what our analysis was like.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff, for setting that up, and thanks, Mayor and Council, for having us again. So I'm just going to go through kind of at a high level the areas we looked through just so everyone's familiar with what we were looking at. I'm not going to belabor some of the tables and things that we have on here, but just trying to hit the highlights. So 1A, as Jeff spoke to, is the 54 corridor sort of between yourselves and Fayetteville. The idea behind looking at this area is really, you know, it may be in the interest of Peachtree City to control this corridor a little bit more and to control the design guidelines, to control land use on this corridor so that you all can have that buffer zone between yourself and Fayetteville to preserve kind of your own community character, to create a gateway between yourselves and Fayetteville. So that was the idea behind this, and I think also what Jeff is talking about was sort of the trimming is the direction we're going in with this, because as you can see, this area as we're looking at it is still primarily residential, and that really comes from sort of, you know, south of the corridor, north of the corridor there. So really, I think the future of this is taking a look a little bit narrower, kind of just along the corridor. If we can move on to 1B. 1B is to your east, and one of the key ideas that was guiding the analysis here, Ebenezer Road is the eastern boundary here. The idea here was that this, you know, there's a number of relatively large parcels that may not, you know, pose as much of a challenge on the assembly side of things. They could be good for, you know, different industrial endeavors, economic development, corporate recruitment, that sort of thing. And so we looked at this as it currently exists. This is a very residential area. It's over 1,000 acres of residential, so heavily residential. But again, the character of it may change upon annexation. And Jeff, if you had
and I'll just say too, the Ebenezer Road. I mean, I think over time, over decades, Ebenezer Road probably commercializes and, you know, changes in character. Doesn't seem imminent today, and a lot of these parcels are residential that butt up to Ebenezer that probably over time become commercial. So we've done some analysis looking at that and to how much of this would need to turn over before it becomes feasible. But I think in the short term, you know, we see and again, one thing we didn't mention is that we talked, as you all know, we talked to y'all. We appreciate your input. We talked to staff, so we've got a lot of stakeholder input. And we heard that it would be nice to go out to Ebenezer Road to clean up the boundaries. It just makes sense that is Peachtree City's ultimate east boundary is Ebenezer Road. I just think that it's a medium to long-term probably project to bring that in until and unless you see commercial projects that you want to bring into the city pop up along Ebenezer Road. So it's a logical place, but again, because there's so much residential in there right now, to reach out to Ebenezer Road. Again, you can't just take Ebenezer Road. You'd have to take all the residential to get to Ebenezer Road in an annexation scenario. So to bring in all of that residential to get to Ebenezer right now is not a fiscal winner. But again, over time, as Ebenezer would evolve, this could be a fiscal winner and a fiscal reason to do this. We're just not going to recommend it in the short term.
Exactly. And also just in relation to your other goals around sort of staying competitive and whatnot, I mean, there's no danger of another city swooping in really and taking this from you. So, I mean, it is more of the interim long-term sort of goal as we see it. 1C is south of your city. This is again a largely residential area that we've heard that there is some commercial industrial sort of interest in some of these larger parcels. There are quite a few relatively large parcels that could be used for more commercial uses. So that was the idea on this one. And then just moving on to area 2. This one, we heard was key because it does contain Starrs Mill High School, which we know that most people in the community sort of associate as one of the, if not the, high school of Peachtree City. We know that there's another within the city already. So the idea is sort of, this area already feels consistent with the character of the city. Why not bring it in? There's also several other large parcels over to the east that could represent, industrial or commercial development sites in the future as well. There is a lot of exempt land in here, so it's not as much of a fiscal loser, even though there is quite a lot of residential in here. But most of the land mass is really exempt land. And there would be other costs, including police, courtesy or safety officers at each of the schools. That is a cost that we've also anticipated in here as well. 3 is the last area. This is north of your city, kind of to the right of Tyrone, north of the city. This area is almost exclusively residential. It's the heaviest sort of residential thing. The idea is that there would be sort of a chance for maybe commercial along Dogwood Trail. Most of these parcels are quite long, which could pose challenges to commercial conversion. So this is certainly sort of the longest range annexation prospect as we see it. And and Jeff, if you have another comment.
Yeah, and this one is a good one to refer back to our conversations with fire and police and thinking about servicing these areas. This one in particular, the feedback was it would be really hard to get our vehicles up there. You got to kind of go around your elbow to service this area. So again, a lot of this was number crunching. It's also taking this qualitative input from council and staff and department heads. And so again, this one, the numbers didn't make sense, but also the department's heads, without even looking at the numbers, the police and fire were mostly like, this would be hard to service. So, unless there's a otherwise compelling reason, this would be an area that we're not going to recommend. So those were the main areas that we looked at. Again, I don't think any of them are overwhelmingly compelling to take in the swaths that we looked at. I think 1A between here and Fayetteville along 54 is compelling. I think it needs to be trimmed, and that's part of what we want to kind of talk to the public about next week as we look at maps and things like that. We can kind of hone in on what the trimming looks like. So that's really where we are. Again, I think the recommendations are that you really look closely at your 54 commercial corridor as an immediate opportunity, and that you've got some of these other places that are medium to long-term opportunities. But more importantly, you probably have some short-term opportunities, but they're just much smaller and sort of opportunistic, right? As opportunities come around, as people want to be annexed, or as economic development opportunities come around, you may pull pieces out of some of these areas to accelerate. But at least you'll have the background now to know that. So that's the big idea. I'm sure you have questions. Just the last thing I'll say before questions is that next steps, as I said, we'll be here next week. And then we want to come back in August with a fully baked report that incorporates all the feedback that we're getting right now and present that to you. And we can kind of present it as the final recommendation draft. And then you guys can kind of decide what to do with that at that point. But so we'll be here next week, and then we'll be at one of your meetings in August with the full draft. And then you tell us where to go from there.
Okay. Thank you. What a great summation. Council, questions, comments?
First blush, I like what I see. I like your ratings that you put on there, from 1A all the way down to 3. I may have a little movement here and there, but basically I agree with you. We may end up having to put this thing through a sausage grinder and come up with whatever, and then take those but leave these behind. And that's the reason why we hired you, to help us go through all of that, because getting big swaths are great. It looks good on a map, but is it really good for us economically and for the surrounding area? And can we service it properly for police and fire? Those are important things that we got to take into consideration before we say, yeah, damn the torpedoes straight ahead. No, we gotta look at what we're gonna be doing, and I appreciate the stuff that you're doing, because that's gonna help us a lot.
Okay, council, other questions and comments?
I have a question. When you come back, is there any way to break down any of these individual, like 1A and some of these sections, break down and show us which of the lots on there are commercial, which are industrial, and which are resident? I mean, residential, you can pretty much tell it's a housing development, so that's kind of like the obvious. But if it's a vacant land, we don't know which way it's currently zoned.
Right, yep.
So, I mean, color coding would be
Yep.
perfect.
It's an easy addition.
Okay.
I don't really have any questions, but thank you. This just needed to be done. I think our last annexation study was, what, like 14 years old or something like that. So I'm
14.
grateful to have something that we can refer to and make decisions from. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, thank you, why it's recommended by associations in the state to do this every 5 years. Because you mentioned there's medium, long-term goals, but we haven't done one in 14 years, you know? Who would have thought Fayetteville would grow so far out west 10 years ago, even 5 years ago? So that's one area. Definitely mindful of making sure it's not straining our services, that there's not a revenue loss to the city. Be smart about this, and also preserving some of that growth. Fayetteville's coming towards us, so that's an area for me personally. We have to be really mindful of preserving what that looks like. So thank you for your work.
All right, we'll look forward to details about an open house and invite the public in. Sounds like an afternoon next week. And thanks very much. This is a wonderful start. Justin, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we are right on track to where we said we would be at this point, and I think working with KB has been great. They've been great with staff, and I appreciate the efforts they put forth so far, and we'll see this through to the finish line.
Yes, sir. We're here to win.
Thanks again. All right, old agenda items, we have none. New agenda items, 72601, continuation of deer management program.
Right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're gonna kind of provide an overview of our pilot season with the deer management and kind of the goals, and I believe this does have an action item to approve a continuation, so we'll just kind of get started. Next slide. Wow, that slide is really messed up. So why do we want to manage deer population in an urban environment? So as deer populations increase and it gets larger than what the urban environment can sustain, it causes a lot of consequences. You know, we want to manage those populations, and we kind of went over this the last time we did it, but prevent vehicle collisions, minimize property damage, reduce the risk of tick-borne illnesses or diseases spread, and then just to maintain a balance ecologically in the environment and biodiversity. Next slide. So this is kind of the data we've collected. There's been over 200 reported deer-related collisions in Peachtree City since 2022, mainly at the intersection of Peachtree Parkway and Interlochen. Fayette County is ranked second in Georgia with 514 deer-related crashes per year, and collisions cause property damage and injuries. Next slide. So this is where we kind of get into our actual outcome from the pilot program. So some of the season outcomes and success metrics. So this last season, a total of 16 deer were tagged during the 2025-2026 season. 15 of those were doe and 1 buck. So we considered it a success because the idea is to remove the does from the population to control the birth of new deer and to kind of curl the next generation. So we deemed the outcome highly successful, and it aligned with the herd management expectations that we had with our wildlife consultants. Next slide. So what we did after the season, we conducted a comprehensive review of the season to identify operational areas for improvement. utilize the harvest data and hunter feedback to review and refine any safety protocols that we could make it more efficient. Evaluated new zones and acreage, and we're still currently evaluating new areas where we could put boundaries for expansions with our GIS team. And then we're continuing the partnership with our consultants. Next slide. So the conclusion is the pilot program was a success as we see it and warrants continuation. It's been successful models exist. I believe we went over this last year. And then safety can be ensured with proven methods. I think our pilot season showed that we can do this safely. And so we're really asking council to consider proceeding with the program for 2026, 2027, and we're going to consider expanding. So a couple of things I do want to note here is we are still looking at expanding areas, right? I'm working with Harold in Recreation. His goal is to expand those areas if possible. Another thing we want to look at with Georgia Wildlife is we're reaching out to them. We haven't gotten a response. We're looking at possibly having city tags that we can issue to the hunters. That way the tags, so the hunters' tags aren't counted against them for hunting, so it would hopefully entice them to do more hunting in the city because they're not worried about it counting against their tags on their license as a tagged deer. So those are kind of two things we're looking at doing. At this time, we're really asking for the continuation. Harold said we needed to hurry up and get it because we need to really open the lottery, right? We need the time to review the applications and go through that process so that we can set it up. Georgia Wildlife hasn't officially released the hunting season. It usually comes out late July and I believe begins sometime in September, but this will give us, with the approval, it'll give us the ability to go ahead and open up the application process so we can get started rolling with another continuation of this program.
Council, questions? I'll jump in.
Okay.
This is a pet project of mine, obviously. I was on the DNR website today, and I believe they have set the dates, because it didn't say proposed. It says clearly archery only, either sex, starts September 12th of 2026.
Okay.
And then, of course, we get to do archery hunting all through all of the other seasons, and then we get the extended season, which ends on January 31st of 2027.
Correct.
So I think they've kind of said it. The other thing is there a need for city tags? Because the state authorizes that a hunter can take up to 12 deer, 10 does, 2 antlered, which is 12.
Right.
Are there a lot of hunters who are taking more than that?
I don't necessarily know that they're taking more than that. I'm not sure during their preference, like where they like to hunt or where they're wanting to get them. I think Harold just looked at it as another incentive that it won't count against their tags, because a lot of hunters kind of have their own places they like to hunt, and what we're really looking for is them to come here to do a population control for us. So I guess, hunters can be very picky about which deer they want to,
which tree they climb.
Yeah, which one they want to take. So I think if they know the tag doesn't go against their tags, they may take, a smaller one or may take something that they wouldn't normally take that would count against their tags, depending on, and we're also, the other part is we're working with processors in the area to see if we can create a relationship there, because obviously they're not going to want to keep all of it. So we're going to try to figure out that methodology too. With
anything that makes them take more deer, I'm good for. I do agree. Our first hunting program, it was a pilot. I agree it was successful. Taking any deer out of there is great. If we could start on September the 12th, the opening day, that would be even greater, because last year, and a lot of you probably don't know this, but I traveled the golf cart path through Stinky Trail all the time. The first several weeks of hunting season was nice and dry, and by the time we started, it was a swamp. So, and I don't know that the weather pattern will be the same or different, but it was just miserable the first few days of hunting season to watch that they had to go through this, deep water to get to the tree stands and stuff.
That was the goal in the conversation. If we can start the application process, we should have no issue
Yeah.
starting on open.
And just to echo what Jonathan said, obviously, we're thrilled to death that there were no accidents. So a lot of the people who were very vocal early on saying, oh, somebody's going to get killed, somebody's going to get shot with an arrow, and all kinds of other stuff, that did not happen, which is a wonderful thing. I'd like to suggest, though, that the deer management program really run the full season, and I know it worked out very well at the tail end where we opened stuff up to city employees, and I know they were forever grateful for that. So, if we could take advantage of the entire calendar instead of taking a break in the middle, if we can do that, that would be even better. If you expand to some other areas, do you know which areas you're looking at?
I know Harold was looking at some areas towards the north possibly, but he's still waiting for DNR or for Georgia Wildlife to contact them because he wants their opinion on sizing and making sure that we're designating areas that are
Right.
adequately sized for hunting and that we're doing it properly. So
I know there's been several times where I've suggested that we open up city-owned greenbelt areas that are abutting private property for an individual hunter to ask for permission to hunt into the greenbelt adjacent to their house. Is that still something that you guys are looking at?
we can look into it. I don't remember Harold actually mentioning like doing it to that extent. I know him and Chris were talking about just finding more green space to hunt, but we can look at that option possibly
I've looked at the
if council wants.
I've looked at the Q Public Net maps with the trees and green belts and cart paths and stuff pretty extensively, trying to figure out if there are some other areas. And I came to kind of sort of the conclusion that even being allowed to go 50 or 100 feet into some of those green belts, if your property abuts it, would be a significant addition to land that you can hunt and how many deer you're going to come across in a particular area. So, I would seriously, like to see that explored as an option. And that would have to be something that a hunter would have to apply, or a property owner would have to apply, like for a special permit, where we would have to look at it and designate it, make sure there is no path running through there or anything that would be a hazard. The other thing is, I've suggested a couple of times, not always on the dais, but I've had conversations with Chris last year about trying to have a registry. And it's really, when I say a registry, it's not like we're trying to make you all register for stuff, but it's actually a way to take people who are interested in hunting and property owners who have lots of land that they'd like to have some of the deer removed, but they don't necessarily hunt, and link them up. So if we could get hunters to register and property owners to say, I'm open to having somebody come on my property to hunt, and then provide them with a way to communicate with each other, let them make their agreements on who they're going to let hunt on their land, give them the express written authorization that's required by law, and that would allow more individual hunting on some of the larger lots we have through Peachtree City, because as I know, I didn't ask for it for this, but we have 1,113 lots of 1 acre or more throughout the city that are residential, single-family homes. Not necessarily all of them could be hunted based on where the streets and roads are, but it's certainly an opportunity where somebody may have a piece of property that could be hunted, but they don't hunt, but they'd like to have the deer removed, or at least thinned out. I think, meshing up the hunters and the property owners is like a really efficient way to do it. Okay. And we don't have to manage the program, we just have to make it available for them to get in contact with each other. So I mean, I'd really like to discuss those two options a little further. I mean, if you wanna, come back a second time, I know we're looking to make a motion on the start of the program tonight. I mean, I'm ready to make the motion right now, but, I'll let the other council members say a thing or two. But I think that we should definitely explore the other two options I put out, so.
Council members, any other comments? I'm for continuing the program myself.
Same. She covered the one question I had.
Yeah. Mr. Holland?
Yeah, I'm in favor of continuing it for another year. I think it was a good success. I like what Councilwoman Brown said about the connections with people who have land but don't hunt. Let a hunter come on and hunt on their land. I like that concept. I don't know how it can be done through the city, but I like the concept of that. And looking at other places all over the city where there's enough room and a proper place to let hunters go in there. It doesn't have to be just the one along that we've done down on the south side. There's a lot of deer in the north side where I live, and we'd love to have you come up there and do some hunting. So otherwise, I'm in favor of this, and if anyone wants to we want more discussion before we vote.
Just real quick, there's every Facebook page under the sun. I don't know why there isn't a Facebook page that does exactly that. I have private property off of Robinson Road.
Yeah.
DM me if
Mm-hmm.
if you're interested in talking about hunting on my private property. Maybe the city doesn't have to get involved,
Yep.
but I think that
Maybe I'll-
the forum is a good idea.
Between now and our next meeting, I'll explore the social media and see
There
if
you
there's
go.
something out there or somebody that I can reach out to kind of take that on.
There you go.
To administrate the page.
All right. Can I get a motion?
I would like to make the motion. No surprise there. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the motion that we approve agenda item 0726-01, continuation of deer management program for archery season commencing on September 12th, 2026 through January 31st, 2027.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
New agenda item 72602, Fire Station 85. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
I bet you didn't think we'd ever get to you. It's a long night.
No, I'm fine. I was learning some stuff. Thank you all for having me tonight. We are about to take the next big step towards building this fire station. This is going to be the guaranteed maximum price for the project. And I'm going to introduce Tim Simons, who is our project manager from Morgan Mill Consulting, and he's going to go over the details with you.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Having a bit of a mic issue here. There we go. So I'm here for to seek your approval for the guaranteed maximum price for Fire Station 85 project for Meja Construction as their construction manager at risk in the sum of $7,981,687. As you recall, back in it was the April 16th council meeting, you approved the appointment of Meja Construction as construction managers at risk. And since that time, we've been working with them and the rest of the project team to kind of come up with this guaranteed maximum price. That's a process of them going through to their subcontractors and looking at getting the best possible price from it, also doing a constructability review so that we kind of do a sense check on the design of the fire station to make sure that there's nothing there which isn't going to cost too much, or if there's a better way of doing it. We did all of that kind of review, and we've come to this point now where after checking all of their subcontractors' prices, we've got this GMP of just under 8 million. If you recall, back in April, the award was $422,500, which was initially for their general conditions and general requirements and their overhead and profit fee. So this will actually be change order number 1 to increase from that $422,500 up to the 7.9 million, which sounds like a big jump. But that's the way that generally we do this with construction management at risk.
If we are given approval, we're planning to break ground in August, and hopefully we'll be complete by the end of June in 2027. So happy to take any questions that you might have.
Council? I'm very excited about this. Ready to move. All right, can I get a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I make a motion, we approve item number 072602, Fire Station 85, construction manager at risk, approval of the guaranteed maximum price of $7,981,687.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public,
That was really easy to
Thank you.
spend
Yeah.
$7.9 million. Wow.
public hearing.
Squaws.
7/26/03, fiscal year 2027 operating and capital improvement budget. Justin Strickland.
All right, everybody in here ready for another 2 hours? Here we go.
Yep.
What?
Protocol?
Oh, yeah, you gotta read the protocol, public hearing. Where's Jasmine? Oh, she doesn't have to do that.
Let's recess for 5.
We'll have,
I'll do it.
we'll have Kelly read the protocol.
Do you need one? Okay, before you begin, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we
Okay,
will
that'd be good.
reconvene
Jasmine
at
will be
9
back.
o'clock sharp. I'm not kidding, 9 o'clock.
Jasmine can't leave for 5.
Yeah.
And now we need Justin.
After all that.
They get away herding cats here.
Yep.
Jasmine's not here to read the protocol either, so.
Do you have it?
Can you read it?
It's right there. I can read it, but there they are.
Usually it's them hurrying us up.
We were at public
back?
hearing 7/26/03, fiscal year 2027, operating and capital improvement budget. And this is a public hearing.
Yes, and the protocol is as follows. When the public hearing is opened, members of council will become hearers. No action on their part is in order until the mayor declares the hearing complete. First, city staff will present the item. The mayor will then allow a total of 10 minutes for the members of the public to comment. No individual members of the public will be given more than 5 minutes to speak. Time limits may only be extended by a majority vote of council. Prior to closing the public hearing, city staff and the public will be given the opportunity to ask questions. When the mayor is assured that input is complete, the public hearing shall be ended, and council may then debate the issue and render a decision. All speakers from the public are asked to follow these rules. 1, please wait to be recognized by the mayor. 2, come to the microphone and state your name and neighborhood prior to making remarks. 3, keep individual remarks under 5 minutes, and please do not repeat others' comments. And 4, address all comments to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Strickland.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, thank you to all of you who've made it this far. So we're going to talk about the fiscal year 27 budget. As you may all recall, we had a special workshop session in June to specifically talk about the budget and the budget only. I think we spent about 2 hours on it with myself and Jonathan and Kelly and Dustin going through the slides. I have the same slides tonight, but I've trimmed some out. I've really only kept mostly the general fund in here to talk about the general fund. I've taken stormwater and some of the other funds out of this to kind of just simplify this presentation tonight. I think we went over them in detail at the previous meeting. But if you do have any questions about any of those funds as we go through or after, we're happy to answer questions with those. But I knew we had some big topics tonight, so I'm going to try to get through this as expeditiously as possible for you all. So talking about market trends like we talked about last time, I was hitting next and I remembered I couldn't, but thank you. One thing I like to always hit out is the consumer price index. What has it done over the past X amount of years? Lately we've been going back to 2009. Oops, did I accidentally click it? Okay. The big highlight here, like we said last time, is since COVID, since 2020, which was a changing point. We all know that, and what the economy's done since then. You see how steep the line has gotten since then. 27% increase in just 6 years on CPI, and that is just year to year. That's not including the compoundedness of those year-to-year increases. But basically, what cost you $76 in 2020 will now cost you $100 today. And that is real for you in your pockets. It's real for me in my personal life, in my family, and it's also real for the city. We are not immune to price increases in things that we purchase, just like we're not in our personal lives either. So next slide. Another big factor in just the markets in general is labor. If you look at the labor market from 2009 to 2020, when COVID hit, over those years, which are 12 years, during those 12 years, 25% increase on average salaries in the U.S. In just the previous 6 years, half the time, the same amount percentage, 25% growth in average earnings in the U.S. over the past 6 years as compared to the previous 12. So it's just a different reality that we live in post-COVID for people who are no longer in the workforce or retired pre-COVID. The market competition, even in local government, is intense, and that's why we try to stay, higher up in the market. So we are actually a selection for good employees, where we have employees that want to work here and choose us because we do have highly competitive pay for our markets, such as police and fire, public works, every position we do, but police and fire have definitely become very, very competitive and hard to hire. And so and that's throughout the country. We've seen tons of fire departments and police departments that are just having major problems staffing, and fortunately we don't have that problem at this time because we are competitive in the market. So next slide. Next one is our citizen to employee ratio. This goes back to 2009 as well. What the orange line shows you is our number of employees, and that's measured over, or it's our employee to population ratio, which is the orange line, which is measured over to the right. Over to the left is our population, which is measuring the blue bars. So since 2009, you see our population has grown. Our staffing has also increased, but the ratio of staff to 1,000 residents has stayed fairly flat. You see during COVID, we actually did do a reduction in force, which decreased our ratio, and since then we've brought that ratio back up in years since COVID. Next slide. State legislative impacts have huge impacts on us as local government. We have to do what the state tells us to do. There are bosses as far as our budgets go, how we can raise revenue, what types of revenue we can raise. The state are the ones that tell us what we can and can't do. So a few years ago, HB 581 was passed, which extends a floating homestead exemption to all homesteaded properties in the city. It's for the county and the school boards as well. Homeowners that are already granted a homestead, if you have a homestead exemption that you've applied with the tax commissioner's office, then this automatically goes on to your tax bill. It ties increases to your assessments to the rate of inflation with a cap of 3%, I believe. Is that right, Kelly? 3%? Yes. Yeah. So your taxes cannot go higher than 3% any given year. The rate of inflation is based on the revenue commissioner of the state of Georgia, decides what the rate of inflation is every year, and this year they decided it was 2.7%. So everything is capped this year at 2.7%. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is the first year this is in effect. Last year, all homestead values were frozen to the previous year. This year, it actually, the cap goes into effect, and this is the way it will work in following years. And this does not apply to commercial, industrial, or non-homesteaded residential. Those will be assessed and taxed the same they always have been. Next slide. All right, this legislative session, SB 33 created a new sales tax called a LHOST, a local homestead option sales tax. It allows counties to adopt a 1% local sales tax to provide property tax relief exclusively for homesteaded properties. So you see the state is very heavily focusing on homesteaded properties. It does not expand revenue for the city. So if the county and all the municipalities ran this 1% sales tax, it would not be a new source of revenue, quote unquote. It would replace homesteaded property tax revenue. So whatever is brought in with that 1% tax countywide would then be applied as a exemption, as a relief to homesteaded properties in Fayette County, Peachtree City, Fayetteville, etc. It requires a local act of the General Assembly. Last month, Council, you did approve a resolution to submit to the General Assembly for us to potentially run an LHOST with Fayette County. It runs for 10 years. So after the General Assembly approves it, it would go to a voter referendum. If the voters approve it, then it would run for 10 years before a renewal is required. Distribution is automatically calculated, which is a bonus for us. We don't have to negotiate with the other jurisdictions in the county. And the way it works is the previous year's sales tax collections would offset the next year's homestead property taxes. Any excess proceeds above 100% exemption would then lower the total millage rate for all properties in the county. Distinction from FLOSS, so the FLOSS, the floating local option sales tax, was created with HB 581 a few years ago. It reduces the property tax burden for all properties. What I think is really good about LHOST is it reduces the tax burden specifically for homesteaded properties. As I said in the workshop last month, I'm a big fan of LHOST. I think the process to get there was very frustrating for local governments to watch with the state, but I think what they ended up coming up with LHOST actually is beneficial. I think it would be a very good thing to run in our county. I think it would relieve a lot of homesteaded properties in our city. As I said last meeting, I think, with my calculations, somewhere between 80 to 100% of our homesteaded property, would be exempted. So your property, let's say you got an 85% reduction on an average house in Peachtree City with an L host, your property taxes would go from $1,100 to $100. Like, it would be a massive relief for our property owners. So I'm a big fan of this, and I hope that the state keeps it in place in the next session. I know that they've, are prone to kind of reevaluate and redo things, but I do think this is a good one, and I hope that they keep it, and I hope that we are able to run it. And one thing I forgot to point out, I'll point out now, the soonest that we could collect a L host is January 1st, 2028. So no matter when it goes to the General Assembly, when our voters would approve it, it cannot collect according to state law until January 2028. So the property tax relief would not be seen until calendar year 2028, later in the year, when tax bills go out. So we're looking at 2 years from now.
Would this
the
be in the
earliest.
election of 27 then? Because it's a municipal election.
Not
that
as of
year.
right now. Or
No, if we-
2027.
Yeah, 2027 is when the next one.
Yeah, if it goes to, so in the special session, that the state just called, no L host resolutions were approved. If they don't call another special session between now and then, the next time is the general session in early 2027. So we, as jurisdictions in Fayette County, are hoping that they would then approve our resolution then, and then we could put it on the ballot in 2027.
Good.
Okay, next slide. All right, general fund revenues. Next slide. So overview of the general fund for this upcoming fiscal year. You see our original budget for fiscal year 26 over on the left at 57.9. Our projected is coming in revenues at 59.3, expenditures at 62.3 for a cash revenue, basically a fund balance deficit of 2.9. That entire 2.9 is the Meja building, the Meja property that we are about to purchase and close on next week. We are purchasing for $3 million, and we intentionally are using reserves to purchase that, so that is the difference you see there. And then proposed for this year, we're at 60.7, really 60.8 when you round up. Our projected fund balance is 57.2%, but as we get further into the PowerPoint, we'll show how we actually plan to reduce fund balance using some cash reserves over the next year or two. So next slide. Major revenue impacts, ad valorem taxes, we recommend a flat millage rate. We did the full rollback last year. We rolled back the year previously. We do with 581 and the impacts of it, and also the potential benefits of an L host. We recommend that we keep the millage rate flat. We anticipate the digest to increase by 3.36%. Homesteads, as I said before, are capped at 2.7. Reassessments are not flat, but we're not seeing the growth like we have before of reassessments in the really soon post-COVID years after COVID. We're not seeing massive inflation with those assessments recently. So estimated total property tax revenue is 24.6, which is about $1 million increase from 2026. And I will say, I'll say it when we get to the pie chart, but basically, our portion of ad valorem taxes, of property taxes for our revenue sources, is actually decreased by 1% this year. So what that means is let's say our property taxes are 44% of our revenue. Last year, they're going down to 43% this year. So an entire percentage point of our revenue is decreasing with property taxes, which means that our other revenue sources are growing faster than property taxes, which is a good thing. Local option sales tax, we estimate it to increase by 3%, which is actually pretty low for local option sales tax. Most years we see it increase by 5%, but we have seen Lost and SPOS both they're not decreasing, they're not flat, but they're not growing as fast as they usually do. So we're being conservative with our estimate for loss this year. And then interest income, we're also decreasing what we usually budget in interest income because we have spent all the ARP funds. And so we are decreasing our interest projections on revenue. All right, next. Here's the breakdown. Yeah, I said 44. So last year ad valorem taxes were 45, and this year they're 44% of the budget. And you see losses are second there with about 22%, and then all the other categories there as well. And I know Kelly last meeting went through what other taxes and franchise taxes and everything that's included in that. So next slide. General fund expenses. This is just a review since 2012 of our millage rate in the city. In 2012, it was 7.178. Over that time, over 13 years, we've decreased it to 5.840, which is where we are now. So that's 1.338 mils we've reduced by in 13 years. And that adds up to what, Kelly? Do you have your notes?
Total value of reductions in today's dollars since 2012 with a cost of $5,650,795 to the city and a $273 in savings to the average property owner.
Per year.
And that does not consider the compounding effect.
Right. Okay, next slide. Proposed budget highlights and expenses, and these bullet points that I'm about to go through are basically the increase that you see in the budget this year are these bullet points. 3% COLA for our staff. Technology costs have held steady. There are 2% increase there. We do have some software costs that are increasing this year, like our police dash cams for their cars. Last of our 3 required 9 new firefighters for Station 85, which you just approved to construct in the previous item. So we will be ready to staff that when it's built, and next year we will not have to budget for 3 firefighters like we have the past 3 years in a row. So that will be rolling off in fiscal year 28. We have 3 other new positions we're recommending in police: a police admin, 1 more planner, and then a EMS training coordinator for fire. The addition of the youth council and public art. The 2027 comprehensive plan, we did decide to contract that out for next year's comprehensive plan. Our ongoing competition for labor, and then increased utility costs, mainly that's electricity. And I have already tasked Kelly with going through with finance on, is our electricity going up the past 2 years the way it has because rates with Fayette Coweta and Georgia Power, or is it our usage? I'm sure it's a little bit of both. But what is really driving this electricity increase we've seen over the past 2 years? And then increased healthcare costs. Healthcare goes up every single year, and so these bullets that you see here are the increase in the budget this year. We found savings as well. We have tons of lines where we've gone down. We have other lines where we've gone up, but these are kind of the big just additions in the budget this year. All right, general fund expenditures by division. We have what we call the big 4. So police and fire make up a little under 50% of the entire budget of the city. When you add in public works and recreation, which are our 4 big operational public facing departments, you're at about 75%. So 75% of what we spend money on in the city is for those 4 departments to operate and serve our citizens. Next slide. And on the other side of that, expenditures by category. So not department, but what are we actually spending on? 66. 2/3 of our budget is personnel. It's either salaries or what it takes to fund those personnel costs, such as healthcare, FICA, all those things that come with having employees. And the reason why employees are the biggest part of what we pay in 2/3 is because what we do is services. What we do requires employees. We have to have our fire and PD 24/7, 365, and that drives a lot of that cost, as well as public works and recreation with a lot of the labor that we do in-house. Purchase contractual services is the next biggest category, and that comes down to back to services. Some services we don't provide directly or we have support with, and that eats up 20% more of the budget. So really when you get into the rest of under 10% of the budget is supplies and capital outlay and things like that. Next slide. So the general fund, go next. So here's the general fund budget summary. This is basically the balance sheet for the budget. You see on the left, total source of funds we have at 60.779253. On the right is our total use of funds, which is our expenditures balancing at 60.779253. So we are presenting a balanced budget to you. Next slide. the 5-year financial model. Do you want to talk about this, Kelly? I'll talk about it if you.
I'll talk about it.
Okay, go.
I say I'll talk about it. This is, the next slide is gonna show the $6 million for the renovations to, an expansion for police and for what we are looking to do, facilities authority bond for the debt service on that, but this doesn't include that. This is just status quo, moving on. We would be putting 62 around, in the next 5 years, 62% into fund balance.
Yeah. So this
Sorry.
this version of the model is status quo. This version is we don't use any reserves. We don't potentially take out a bond, and you see that our fund balance keeps increasing to almost 5% by fiscal year 2032. So next slide. This model shows. You're welcome. I'm sorry I called on you.
That's okay.
This model shows what it looks like with taking $6 million out, which the $6 million we want to use in reserves is planned to supplement the grant we received from the Department of Homeland Security for our police and emergency operations center upgrades. The police upgrades include the renovation of the gun range we purchased and the current police building to outfit it into a more modern situation. And since we bought the gun range and we purchased the Mesa building, police admin and fire admin are both going to run out of the Mesa building. The gun range is going to become a training center and emergency operations center, and then the current PD building will be renovated to potentially expand evidence because they don't have a ton of evidence storage, and also format it better for patrol and detective operations for the current PD building. So that's what the $6 million would be spent on. And then we do potentially want to look at a $12 million 15-year bond. That bond would fund the improvements to Kedron, also the Braylon multipurpose field, and if we had some money left, which we think we might between those two projects, we could come up with one other project. We have plenty that we're looking at to fund as well. So that payment's going to be around $1 million a year. And you see with keeping the millage rate where it is, not increasing it, not decreasing it, you see down at the bottom the percentages of where our fund balance will end up there. It ends up in the mid-40s, and it stays steady in the mid-40s as we move forward to 2032. And I do want to point that out as, okay, we're going to have to take on $1 million payment every year. We will absorb that, and we will not increase the millage rate. We'll be able to do that with growth of other revenue funds and things like that. So, next slide. All right, I'm coming up on the end. Capital funds. Oh gosh, the font's all messed up there. But it's 1.416 is the font there. I just want to point out that our capital funds, we finance things, and you see the things we're financing there, and we finance things on a 5-year rotating basis. So every year we basically have 5 different bonds that we're paying off with equipment and vehicles. One rolls off, one rolls on. The reason we do this is it helps us keep our capital steady every year. And I'll point this out by saying the 1.416 of this capital budget is only $15,000 more than last year's. So it helps keep us smooth out the capital outlays, and it keeps us from having years where we have to spend $5 million and then another year where we only spend $1 million. It keeps it very steady every year with how we fund our capital. All right, next. All right, what does it cost to live in Peachtree City, and what do you get for your money? Next slide. So when you look at our millage rates, Peachtree City does have the highest municipal millage rate in Fayette County, although we are getting very close to Fayetteville with rollbacks we've done. Next slide. When you add in what the county does, and you guys, council, you've seen this ad nauseum, but when you add in what the county does provide services to Tyrone and Fayetteville that they do not provide us, and this is because we do them ourselves. So this right here is the county fire. So county fire covers Tyrone, it covers Brooks, and it covers the unincorporated parts of the county. Fayetteville does have their own fire department, but they do not run their own EMS. So the kind of more peach color here is they do also have to charge Tyrone and Fayetteville, Brooks, and Fayette County unincorporated for EMS, which we do both of those things. We're one of the few municipalities that does both fire and EMS ourselves, and our citizens benefit from that because we do it more efficiently than the county does, and we do it better, in my opinion. So basically what that does is you take our municipal rate, you take the county maintenance and operations rate, which everyone pays, and you take the E911, our millage rate with the county added in adds up to 9.813. With Fayetteville and Tyrone, they actually surpass us with 10.619 and 10.682. And one thing to note too is no matter where you live in Fayette County, if you go to the next slide, I think does it cover the schools? Yes. The reason why I don't include the schools until the very end is because once you add the schools in, you can't even really read what the cities and county charge, because by and large, and you all know this as council, what you pay on your property tax bill is mostly to the schools. About 2/3 of your property tax bill is going to the Board of Education. Only about 20% of it is coming to Peachtree City for everything you get. And so when you actually take these millage rates, 30.282 down to 27 in Fayette County unincorporated, the difference of what a resident in Fayette County pays, no matter where they live, is less than $500 a year. Go ahead. So in Peachtree City, where do your property taxes go? On an average house of $508,000 in Peachtree City, you're paying about $6,000. About $4,000 of it is going to the Board of Education. About $1,100, $1,200 is coming to Peachtree City, and then the rest is going to the county through their 911 and their maintenance and operations. Next slide. So what do you get in Peachtree City? You are already paying less for an average value house than Fayetteville and Tyrone, and you're also getting a ISO 1 fire and premier EMS department. You're getting great parks and recreation. We have over 40 parks in our city, which is a big number for a city our size. One of the best libraries in the state of Georgia. Tyrone and Fayetteville, the county, they have some pass, but they do not have the pass we have. So you're getting a 100-mile multi-use pass system that we maintain ourselves. You're getting neighborhood and median maintenance, which is not done in other places. And you're also getting one of the best police departments in the nation. And the sentence up there is one to really take in. It costs just $1.13 more per day to live in Peachtree City than in unincorporated Fayette at the end of the day. I think it's a pretty good deal. Next slide. I'm not going to talk about this one. Next slide. I'm not going to talk about that one. Next slide. Okay, budget calendar. I skipped some because we talked about them last time, but so on June 22nd we had the workshop. Tonight is July 29th or July 9th. We are having the public hearing, and the anticipated approval for the budget will take place on Thursday, August 20th, and I will we'll do the public hearing and I will entertain any questions.
With that, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? We have one, and sir, you get 5 minutes.
Can we give him 10? I'm just kidding.
I'm not going to take 5 minutes. So I'm here for a repeat of last year. I was in favor of the budget last year. It's a solid budget. Council staff did a great job again this year. The thing that you lived here since 2007 and a couple of years before that, what I've seen in the past administrations, past city staff, they have we have assets in the city, parks, roads, things like that, and they're allowed to fall into disrepair. People stop using them, and then because nobody uses them because they're kind of junky, then the city says nobody's using it. We're not even going to take care of this anymore, and that's the most disingenuous thing that I see. And so I really appreciate, again, this year, budgets come forward to maintain and keep what we have. Thinking about the sales, various sales taxes, it's this alphabet soup of LOST and SPLOST, E-SPLOST, L-HOST, FLOST, and T-SPLOST. I know that the state caps us to an 8% maximum. I think there's opportunity costs between L-Host and Flost and T-Splost in there somewhere. Some, it might be great to have some homestead offset. That would preclude us, if we go to 8%, from maybe a T-Splost. It depends on, I think, what the residents of the city want. I like the fact that HB 581 has capped the taxes to a 2.7% this year. I like the COLA for city staff. We have professional city staff. I want to see that they get paid. When I interact with the city and the staff, Public Works, Fire, PD, just nothing but professionalism. That's what we should expect in our city. The 5-year model, the 47% unassigned, I think there's some room to take a look at where can we go there. It's a fairly large reserve, and maybe some study could be done to what do we do with that in the future. Could millage come down some? I'm not sure. It's something I think merits some study. I like the focus on stormwater. City's 50 years old. Infrastructure starts to wear out. I live close enough to Peachtree Parkway to see continual main breaks, and I know stormwater doesn't do that, but there will be stormwater facilities that will deteriorate and need to make sure that those get maintained before there's a huge problem there. And last comment is I think I live in that average house, and basically $1,200 a year goes to Peachtree City. I have things that I pay for, gym memberships, my water bill's higher than that. I feel like I get so much value for what I get in Peachtree City, everything Justin mentioned in the slides. So thank you, good budget.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I hereby close the public hearing. Council? Who wants to go first?
Let's let them go first.
Mr. Polachek, any comments?
Thanks, Justin. And thank you, Paul, for your public comment, and everybody else who's still here with us. So this is my, new guy. It's my first jab at a city budget. So first, just want to give thanks to your time with me going through. I had a large range of questions that I sent over, and they're all answered promptly and quickly. So thank you for that. I just want to reiterate a few of the topics that we had discussed, and one being the expenditure increase. And, sometimes with public budgeting, and I saw this with agency work too, there's many line items that are common expenses across all departments, like health premiums. They're not one-time line items that are underneath a certain department, but you see them across. So sometimes it's easy to lose track of some of the increases in the budget. So what I had asked Justin for was a breakdown, in which he provided in the slide as well, so that our residents know where the 2.8 increase is going. I think that's important, and something you've provided. And when I look at those additions, they're justified, in my opinion. And a few of them we've voted on this year, like the Youth Council and the Public Art Program. Obviously, I am in full support of the 3% COLA as well. And, one point on the COLA, which Paul elevated as well, and I'll tie it to maintenance, right? Sometimes which I think the team does a good job, and there's always room for opportunity, but the idea of always having to add more people to solve an issue, sometimes you look at the retention rates, and let's say we don't add a 3% COLA, those maintenance folks are going to go somewhere else. It's going to then take 3 months to hire a new person, get them onboarded and trained, and that's where we start, creating a backlog of projects. So, of course, what usually you think 3% going to our police and fire department, very important, but there's also these other positions that impact our quality of life as well. And it's something we're seeing with the healthcare premiums across, every company, private, agency, public. It's something that we're experiencing here at the local level too, and that's a big chunk, $840,000 out of the 2.8 for the health premiums. And of course, all of the new positions that we're adding that you had a slide on, whether it's for our planning department, or our police and fire, all, I've seen the justifications for that and in full support. The one question I have on the expenditures, they're all annualized costs except, and this is the one question I forgot to ask you, so it's not too much of a curveball. The comp plan, that's a one-time cost. In your eyes, what's the justification for putting that into your analyzed big budget versus just pulling that out as a one-time cost elsewhere? Or is that how you view it?
Oh, I could. I mean, when I sent you that list, I could have pulled, because it is a one-time cost, but it is coming from the general fund.
Okay, yeah.
So it is, the general fund is paying for that to be done. So it is an extra expense this coming up year. So that's why I put it in there, because if I tried to find the 150,000 in other places, I was kind of running into just smaller incremental increases, and that list would have kind of gotten bigger or longer. So it was like, what are the big expenses being added this year? And that's one of them. It'll go away next year. It'll go away fiscal year 28, but it is a big expense being added this year.
Thank you. And I don't think you gave yourself enough credit for dissolving the engineering department and finding cost savings there. So, you know, what it's hard to see unless you understand public budgeting. You may not see that cost savings captured in a line item anywhere, but that is cost savings that you are seeing in the budget. I think you told me about 100,000, 150,000 that you're able to apply to some of the new budget adds as a result of removing a department, reclassifying some of those positions. So I just want to give you kudos for that. And then one more, Madam Mayor, just want to briefly mention property tax relief, because last year, you know, and it's been the trend to look at the millage rate. What has happened in even past 6-9 months, as you reviewed, is additional mechanisms being given and granted to local governments to deliver property tax relief. And I think this budget has gotten to a point where you do a millage rate cut, and those cuts are going to be felt somewhere. I do agree that you run a very lean budget, and any cuts to the millage rate are going to be detrimental to a certain department. We will see that as residents. And what I appreciate that the state did was give an additional mechanism for states now considered the L host. And the thing is, you do a full rollback, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's a few dollars a month of savings most likely, versus setting us up for a path in the next 2 years where potentially, you mentioned $1,000 on average home of savings across the year. So that is a more responsible, efficient, and more impactful way of delivering tax relief, in my opinion, than looking at the millage rate and putting our services on the cutting block that I, as a resident, raising 2 young kids here, value highly. So that as an area that, you know, since November and last summer, a lot of talk about millage rate and what you guys have done, previous councils done the last 2 years. I think there's a new path for local government. So I appreciate your opinion to support the host, and something I'm looking forward to supporting as well. That's it. Thank you. Great budget.
All right, Ms. Johnson?
I echo many of the sentiments here. I feel like this is one of the best nights of the year, and I wish we had more residents here. I just feel like there's so much good just information, education that comes out of this presentation. Last year, I think we were afraid that we wouldn't have anybody, so I dragged my husband here, and he may have been like one of 2 people in our audience. He paid attention because he was actually very impressed because of all the graphs and everything, to see what you really get in this city for the amount that you pay. It's very impressive, and I think you spell it out very well in that presentation, and it never gets old to me because I think it's very interesting. And anyways, I'm very proud of this budget. Thank you for your work on it. I feel like we're focusing on the things that we need to focus on. I think maintenance is massive. I feel like we're doing a good job of that and taking care of the things that we need to take care of, and I feel like there's, like you said, more in that area that I feel passionate about that we need to do. So I look forward to the future and taking care of even more things. Will you explain just one thing? I feel like there's another word that we also use for reserves, and is fund balance. Is that the other?
Yeah.
Okay, but I
They're
feel like
different.
these two are not synonymous.
They're not. Well,
But I feel like sometimes they get tossed around as if people almost think they are the same, but they're not. And can you explain the difference?
well, unassigned fund balance is all of your assets that you don't well, not all your assets, but all of,
Do you want me?
well,
I can.
'cause
I'm okay now.
I say because cash reserves is cash. Like, it's cash and anything liquid that you have available quickly. And it is different than, it's a part of fund balance. Fund balance is a little bit more. Fund balance, so usually your fund balance is higher than your cash reserves. Cash reserves is actually cash you have. Fund balance includes a little bit more, which includes accounts receivable. Does it include accounts receivable?
What? Sorry.
Does it include accounts receivable? Yes.
Yes.
That's insane, yes.
Yes. But it also includes, inventory and
Yeah.
prepaids.
Prepaids.
And, every year at the beginning of the fiscal year, I come back to you and we do a surplus carryover for things that were budgeted in the previous year that we couldn't get because we have to charge it to when we get it. We can't say, oh, we're gonna get the service and not get it until October and still charge it back to the previous year. So we carry forward those funds, and I think this year it was like close to $2 million that we carried forward. So that's in fund balance for fiscal year '25, but it's not actually money to spend. It was money that was already committed for something else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes?
It does. Thank you. But in the slides, it was talking about the percentage that we have in fund balance, right?
Yes, that is fund balance, which cash reserves is a little bit lower.
So when we see that percentage, it's not all cash.
I believe our fund balance is 34.
You mean the reserves?
The reserves is like 34,
Well,
I think.
no, fund balance is like 34 and cash reserves is like 30.
Well, it's on that slide.
Yeah, I think, I
Oh,
thought
was
it was
it?
at like, didn't you
Yeah.
have like 40 something?
I'm talking just total number. Like 30
Oh,
million.
gotcha.
My copy is so small. 32
Fund balance?
projected for this year, yes, 32.
32.
32% or 32?
33, right at
32
33 million.
Okay, okay.
And cash reserves are like 29, 30. So it's the biggest part of fund balance, but it is a little bit lower.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you for that. And also, anyways, thank you for the budget and thank you for all of our staff that worked on this. I know it's a long process and I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Brown?
I'm sure there are other communities who may have more money than we do, but I think we're sitting in a good position. Again, echoing what Councilman Polchak said, I think when we passed the consent agenda, I don't know if a lot of people really understood all of the things that we did with the one vote. And that was to take 3 engineering positions, shuffle them around, reclassify them, put them under departments that they're actually working more closely with and saving money in the process, which was, a really smart way and a smart time to do it. Downgrading 2 of the 3 positions to a lesser grade, but we're not requiring engineers to do those positions, so that really does save us a lot of money. So I think that was a really smart thing that we've done. I look at the number for healthcare. We went up $750,000 in our budget this year. That's the increase. But healthcare costs have gone up for everybody, every place, and we have 378, I think it is, or 380 employees. Forget the exact number. Forgive me on that one. It doesn't matter, but I mean, healthcare goes up for them.
389. Dr. Tab had it.
How many?
389.
389. Can't keep up. And, seeing a $750,000 increase just in healthcare costs, you don't realize how much that goes up. I know how much my premiums go up every year, but, that's my own personal budget. Then you do it and you extrapolate how much it goes up for for the number of employees
and
we
a note
have.
on that, we competitively bid out our healthcare every year,
Yeah.
and we switch if something's cheaper.
So, and then other things that we have done, or I should say that the city staff have done, the 2 new positions that we have for youth council and public art, those are part-time positions, so there's no benefit package with that, so
Right.
that's a good thing. Even though we're adding them as a position, you know, we're trying to, you know, kind of toe the line on what we have to add. And they are part-time employees. Now I'd like to kind of briefly talk about the L-Host. We've talked about it, we've put it out there. That is one thing that we have looked at that really could, if we go that direction and it gets approved by the voters, that could really have a significant impact on saving residential homeowners who are homesteaded a lot of money on their property taxes. And a lot of people sit there and say, well, I'm still gonna have to pay it because I'm gonna have to pay the sales tax instead of that. But you always have a few people from outside your county, not necessarily everybody, but that come in, spend some money. And for us to be able to use L-Host, which is sales taxes, to reduce property taxes, I think that's gonna be a big bonus across the board. So, we're still tweaking all of the numbers, and hopefully that will work out when we put it forward to the legislature to put it on the, you know, a referendum vote. The other thing is, last year we did do a full millage rollback, and I know that our fire chief was very dismayed when he lost his fire tower, and halfway through the year we were able to build his fire tower anyway. So there are always those things that get tweaked in the middle of a year, and a lot of people don't necessarily always see what's going on and focus what's going on, but a lot of that is just to do all of the things necessary to maintain that ISO rating, to make sure that we have, you know, a well-trained, you know, staff in our fire and EMS departments. The other thing is our fund reserve. We have taken money out of it, which is something that I recommended that we do. We took money out of it and we used it for a big ticket item, so we did not have to do that purchase as either a bond item or, you know, increasing the millage rate in order to do it. But we're enhancing the quality of the buildings that we have. We're doing better maintenance than prior councils were able to do. And I think we're going in all of the right directions with some of the things and the decisions that have been made. And I think it's working out well.
All right, Mr. Holland?
I promise you, Madam Mayor, I've only got one comment to make. We've had a lot of them already said, and I'm just not going to repeat all of those. But I hope you all saw the one thing that I saw that jumped out of what Justin said. He says, we're going out and we're going to borrow $12 million. And oh, by the way, we're not going to raise your taxes. We'll pay for it. We'll absorb it. We'll take care of it. We'll manage it. That to me, thank you, city manager, that tells you you're managing your business correctly, and this business is our government. So that one, I hope everyone caught that. We're borrowing money, but we're not raising your taxes. How many cities do that? It's crickets. I don't hear anything. Very few cities will do that. Our city's going to do it. Madam Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, and we're scheduled to approve our budget on August 20th in our city council meeting. That's all I have. Justin, last comment on budget or no?
Just thank you, council.
Thank you. Council staff topics, I just want to mention that boards, commissions, and authorities, the application is open in July for volunteers, and we are looking for citizen volunteers on all of our boards, commissions, authorities, citizens groups. Go to our website, and there are a lot of options there. Council staff topics, Mr. Polachek?
Just a big thanks again to staff for a successful 4th of July, the World Cup watch parties. It takes a lot of work. I heard very positive feedback about the drone show, so kudos to staff for coming up with that idea. Maybe that's something we do in future years, but I hear that they need some time to decompress before they start strategizing next year's 4th of July. But just want to give thanks to everybody who made it, I think, the best 4th of July in our city's history.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Yeah, I think Harold was so tired from all the work that he put into the 4th of July that he's not here because he's on vacation now. So even though he's not here, thank you, Harold, for all of your work, and Michelle, all of our recreation and all of our staff. I know there were many, many meetings where all of the staff and directors got together and worked together and collaborated. I feel like there was so much social media information that was out, spelling out everything going on in the city and where people could be. So just thank you for all of that planning. I think I went through that day almost kind of like waiting for the moment that something bad was going to happen, and nothing did. And so anyways, great job, all of you, fire, PD, thank you for a wonderful day. It truly was the best 4th of July.
It really was. Ms. Brown?
I agree the 4th of July was excellent. The only comments that I saw that were a little bit less than wonderful were a handful of people who were not positioned in the right location to see the actual drone exhibits. You know, when they got up there and they actually did a formation, if you were off to one side or the other and not looking at it straight on, or at least from a decent angle, you didn't get to see what it really was all about. It just was like a line of all these lights. So I don't know whether those drone shows can be done where once they get set, I don't know if they've got that technology to rotate it 90 degrees so that everybody gets to see it or not.
You pay for the 3D
The
version.
3D version.
Thousands of drones.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, thanks. But anyway, that was the only negative thing that I heard anybody mumble grumble about, was that I had no idea it was, an eagle that the wings were flapping. And it's like, oh gosh, it's too bad, because it was great.
It was great.
The other thing is our council retreat for the end of August was canceled. I'm very happy about that. We're gonna do shorter, I guess, special called meetings to deal with certain issues that come up in 3 or 4 hour intervals or less.
Yeah, the plan is to, because at retreats we'll have departments come and give you all updates and talk about operations and, some needs they have or things like that. So the plan is to have 4 per year. As of right now, 1 per season, 1 per quarter, and to basically headline each one with one of the big 4. So basically one meeting would have PD, one would have fire, one would have public works, one would have rec, and then also pairing one of those with a smaller department to give an update, and then the rest of the meeting you all would have some open discussion. But it's a way so they can come give you updates, because our agendas get so packed and we go until 10 p.m. that I just don't have enough room on agendas to put them to have enough time to really talk with you all, and you all feel have time to ask them questions. So I think that's valuable. So we'll do that, and then any open discussions that you all want to have with each other will also be. But yeah, the plan is to have them from about 8:30 to 12 on whatever day we choose. Sometime in September, I think, for this first one. And Jasmine and Stacy will probably be checking all y'all's calendars and asking y'all what day will work best. So.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Holland?
Madam Mayor, I'll save you on this one. I think we're
Okay.
about done. I was going to give a long talk on shared use path safety. I wrote it all up. I think it's too late in the night to give that, but I'll save it till next meeting and let everybody go home and go to bed. But I do have one comment, other than all the great comments about the 4th of July. I honestly believe that the TV that Harold bought, which he did a good job in buying, that giant TV, is not big enough. I was in the back of this thing, and it looked like a postage stamp out there. It needs to be bigger. And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Justin, do you have any council staff? Mr. Meeker?
I actually do, Mayor. Mr. Holland may actually make fun of me tonight, because I'm going to need a minute or two. When I was down at GMA, one of the discussions, there was a city attorney breakout group talking about this year's buzzword and a little bit last year's buzzword as well, and that is the word transparency. It is not a unique issue to Peachtree City, though tonight, yet again, we heard about secret meetings and so forth. I think the first time I met with each of you, you heard me say very clearly that I'm not elected to an office. I am not a policymaker. I'm the legal advisor. So to that end, I tend to stay out of issues. Tonight's a great example. We're talking about the single trash hauler. I advised you what the law was. You're not going to hear me say my personal thoughts about that entire argument. That's for council to decide. So what I'm going to talk a few minutes about tonight is process and procedure. In my role as the city attorney, obviously compliance with the Georgia Open Meetings Law and Georgia Open Records Act is pretty darn important. It's one of the things I hold very important, and B, have a track record of showing it. Somebody asked me recently how long I've been a lawyer, and believe it or not, tomorrow will be the 34th anniversary of the day I took my oath as a member of the state bar. 32 of those 34 years have been representing local governments, cities and counties. I'm proud to tell you that in that time period, I've dealt with 2 lawsuits, one each, one with an open records issue. That was in 1995, and we successfully defended the city in that case. The other was an open meetings for a potential issue. That matter was resolved by simply canceling the meeting. I will tell you that a lawyer typically takes the facts and tries to apply the law to those facts, so I'm going to give you a couple of facts tonight. The city council, as we all know, held a retreat in Kennesaw earlier this year. The notice for that meeting and the meeting itself complied with the open meetings law, period. A number of topics were discussed at that retreat. No final action was taken on any of those topics. For matters that there was consensus, those matters were put on either agendas that have occurred or future agendas for final action. The city zoning ordinance, I think everybody understands this concept. It has permitted uses in each district. In order to amend your zoning ordinance under both city ordinances and Georgia law, you have to conduct 2 public hearings. One is before the Planning Commission, one is before the City Council, before any changes can be made to those permitted uses. I will tell you that if there's an annexation or a rezoning of property or a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, the same requirements apply. 2 public hearings, one each before the City Council and the Planning Commission. I do take issue with implications or challenges to secret meetings. I've suggested to more than one person, if you believe there's been an alleged violation of the Georgia Open Meetings Law or Georgia Open Meetings Act, you have alternatives. 1, you can report it to the State Attorney General's Office for enforcement. 2, there are actually criminal penalties, which is why I take this so seriously. I would never want any of you to be charged with violating one of those laws. But you can report that to the solicitor's office. And of course, Georgia law does avail private citizens of the right to challenge actions taken if they believe that a violation of the Open Meetings Law or Open Records Act has occurred. Thanks for your time. I will tell you that we do have to have an executive session tonight to discuss pending or threatened litigation and real estate.
Thank you, Mr. Meeker. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for real estate and pending litigation. Did I say it right?
You do.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.